Lena Whitmore stood in a hospital corridor at 2 a.m., holding a 3-day-old baby with no birth certificate, no father's signature, and no way forward. The man she'd trusted had just walked away, demanding proof the child was even his. She had $47, a dead phone, and hospital discharge papers she couldn't complete. That's when she saw him, the stranger in the expensive coat who'd been watching from the shadows, his eyes dark and calculating. He stepped forward with an offer that should have terrified her. He could give her baby a name, a future, everything Caleb had refused. All she had to do was trust a man far more dangerous than the one who'd abandoned her. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this journey travels. The fluorescent lights in St. Catherine's Hospital hummed with that particular buzz that happens late at night when the world feels abandoned. Lena sat in one of those plastic chairs bolted to the floor, the kind designed to be uncomfortable enough that people don't stay too long. She'd been sitting there for 2 hours. Her daughter slept in her arms, wrapped in the thin hospital blanket with the little pink and blue footprints on it. 3 days old, still unnamed. Still technically existing in some bureaucratic limbo because the birth certificate required both parents' signatures, and Caleb. Lena's jaw tightened. She wouldn't cry again. She'd cried enough. The maternity ward had that peculiar quiet that comes after visiting hours, broken only by the occasional newborn's cry from behind closed doors and the soft squeaking of nurses' shoes on linoleum. Lena had been told she needed to leave. Discharge papers signed, insurance maxed out, room needed for the next mother. But she'd stalled, claiming she was waiting for her ride, because the truth was worse than anything she could admit to the sympathetic but overworked nurse who kept checking on her. She had nowhere to go. The apartment she'd shared with Caleb? He'd changed the locks. She'd discovered that when she'd tried to go back yesterday with her mother's old house key. Her phone, the one currently dead in her purse because she hadn't paid the bill in 2 months, had 63 unread messages, most of them from Caleb's mother telling her she was a liar and a manipulator. The rest were from the hospital billing department. Lena looked down at her daughter's face. The baby had Caleb's nose, which was such a cruel irony it almost made her laugh. Almost. "Miss Whitmore?" Lena's head snapped up. A different nurse this time, younger, with purple-framed glasses and a sympathetic smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We really do need you to clear the waiting area. Is your ride coming soon?" "Yeah," Lena lied, her voice rough from exhaustion. "Just waiting for the text." The nurse glanced at Lena's dead phone sitting on the chair next to her but didn't comment. "Okay, but we're going to need to lock this wing in about 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Lena nodded, not trusting herself to speak again. The nurse walked away, her shoes making that soft squeak-squeak sound that would probably haunt Lena's memories forever. She looked down at her daughter again. The baby's tiny fist had escaped the blanket, fingers curled tight like she was already fighting something. "I don't know what to do," Lena whispered. I don't have a plan here." The baby didn't answer, of course, just kept sleeping with that perfect newborn obliviousness. Lena's mind cycled through her options for the 100th time. Her mother, dead 4 years now. Her father, never in the picture. Friends? She'd lost most of them during the year with Caleb, who'd slowly convinced her that they were jealous, that they didn't want to see her happy, that she only needed him. Her job at the diner? Gone, because morning sickness and double shifts don't mix, and her manager had been looking for an excuse to fire her anyway. She had $47. She'd counted it 3 times. $47, a diaper bag with maybe 6 diapers left, 2 cans of ready-to-feed formula the hospital had given her, and a car that was currently in Caleb's name parked in a garage she couldn't access. The worst part? She'd seen this coming. Some part of her had known, even while she was telling herself that Caleb loved her, that they were building something together, that the baby would bring them closer. She'd known, and she'd stayed anyway, because leaving felt impossible when you had no money and nowhere to go and a person inside you depending on you for everything. Lena. She looked up, and there he was. Caleb stood at the end of the corridor near the elevators. He hadn't come closer, as if the space between them was some kind of protection. He wore the jacket she'd bought him for his birthday, her last paycheck from the diner, blown on leather he'd said he didn't really like but wore anyway. His hair was different, shorter, like he'd been trying to look more put together. Professional. For a moment, something in Lena's chest cracked open. He'd come. He had actually come. "You came," she said, hating how much hope was in her voice. Caleb shifted his weight, hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Yeah, look, we need to talk." "Okay." Lena stood carefully, adjusting the baby in her arms. Her legs felt shaky. She'd been sitting too long. "Do you want to hold her? She's been sleeping, but I need you to get a paternity test." The words hit like cold water. Lena stopped moving. "What?" "A paternity test." Caleb's voice was flat, rehearsed. He'd practiced this. "My lawyer said," "Your lawyer?" "My mom knows a guy. He said I shouldn't sign anything until we verify." "Verify?" Lena's voice rose, and somewhere down the hall, a baby started crying. She forced herself quieter. "Caleb, you were there. You know exactly when she was conceived. You were the only— That's what you say." The hallway tilted. Lena reached out, steadying herself against the wall. The baby stirred in her arms, making a small sound of protest. "I never cheated on you." Her voice came out strangled. "Not once. Not ever." "Look, I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying we need to be sure. Legal stuff, you know? My mom said—" "Your mom?" Lena laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Your mom who called me a whore? That mom?" Caleb's face hardened. "Don't talk about my mother. I gave up everything for you." The words came faster now, all the things she'd been holding back. "My job, my friends, my apartment. I moved in with you. I trusted you. And now you're standing there telling me you need proof that your own daughter is yours?" "I didn't ask you to give up anything," Caleb shot back. "That was your choice. You told me we were building a life together." "Yeah, well," Caleb looked away, jaw working. "Things change." There it was. The truth underneath all the lawyer talk and his mother's influence. Things change. He'd changed his mind. About her, about the baby, about everything. "So what now?" Lena asked. Her voice sounded dead even to her own ears. "You just walk away? Leave us here?" "Get the test." Caleb pulled his hands from his pockets, and Lena saw he was holding his car keys, getting ready to leave. "Once we have proof, we can figure out custody, support, all of it. But I'm not signing anything until then." "I can't afford a paternity test, Caleb. I can't afford anything right now." "That's not my problem." The words hung there. That's not my problem. Her homelessness, her poverty, their daughter. None of it was his problem until she could prove, legally and scientifically, that he had any obligation at all. "You're really going to do this?" Lena said quietly. "You're going to make me prove she's yours, even though you know. You know, Caleb." Something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or shame. But it died fast. "I'll be in touch once you get the test done. My lawyer will set it up if you can't afford it." "How generous." "Don't be like that." "Like what?" Lena felt the anger rising now, hot and sharp. Like someone who just got abandoned with a 3-day-old baby? Like someone whose boyfriend of 2 years just decided she's a liar? "How exactly should I be, Caleb?" He didn't answer, just turned toward the elevator. "Wait." The word came out desperate, and Lena hated herself for it. Can you at least give me some money? For formula, diapers, I just need— I'll send something once the test is done." The elevator dinged, the doors opened. "Caleb, please. I don't have anywhere to go." He stepped inside, pressed the button. "Figure it out, Lena. You're a survivor, right? That's what you always said." The doors closed. Lena stood there, staring at her reflection in the brushed metal. She looked terrible. Greasy hair pulled back, hospital gown still partially visible under her coat because she'd been too exhausted to fully dress herself, eyes red-rimmed and hollow. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who'd been broken. The baby started to cry. "I know," Lena whispered, rocking gently. "I know, baby, I know." She didn't have a name picked out. They'd been waiting, she and Caleb, to decide together. He'd wanted to wait until after the birth, said he needed to meet her first to know what fit. Now Lena wondered if he'd just been stalling, keeping his options open. The baby's cries grew louder. Lena fumbled with the diaper bag, pulled out one of the bottles. Her hand shook as she twisted off the cap. The baby latched on immediately, desperate, and Lena felt tears sliding down her face again. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I thought he loved us." Rough night? Lena's head jerked up. A man stood near the vending machines, about 15 feet away. She hadn't heard him approach. He was tall, dressed in dark slacks and a coat that looked expensive even from a distance. His hair was black, pulled back, and his face had that kind of sharp elegance that came from good genetics and better grooming. He held a cup of coffee from the machine, steam rising. "Sorry," he said, his voice low and measured. "Didn't mean to startle you." Lena wiped her face quickly. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." It wasn't said cruelly, just stated as fact. Lena felt a flicker of anger. She didn't need some stranger commenting on her appearance right now, but she was too tired to muster much heat. "Well, I am," she said, "so you can go back to your coffee." The man didn't move. He studied her with dark eyes that seemed to take in everything: the dead phone, the diaper bag, the way she held her daughter like a shield. "The guy who just left. That the father?" Lena's grip tightened on the bottle. "None of your business." "Fair enough." He took a sip of his coffee, unhurried. He looked like an asshole, though, just making an observation. Despite everything, Lena almost laughed. "Yeah, he is." "He leave you here? Look, I appreciate the concern or whatever this is, but I really don't need... You planning to sleep in this hallway?" The question was too direct, too close to the truth. Lena felt her face flush. "I said I'm fine." "You said that. Doesn't make it true." The man moved closer, not threatening exactly, but deliberate. "I've been watching you for about an hour. You've been sitting in that chair since before visiting hours ended. Your phone's dead. That guy clearly isn't coming back. And you look like you're about 2 minutes from a complete breakdown." Lena stared at him. "You've been watching me for an hour?" "I have insomnia. Hospital coffee's terrible, but it's open all night." He gestured with his cup. "And yeah, I notice things." "That's creepy." "Probably." He didn't seem bothered by the accusation. "But I'm not wrong, am I?" Lena wanted to tell him to go to hell, wanted to lie, to pretend she had everything under control. But the baby in her arms was warm and real and completely dependent on her, and she had $47 and nowhere to sleep tonight. And this stranger had just called Caleb an asshole with more honesty than anyone had shown her in months. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. "To help. Nobody helps for free." "Smart!" The man's mouth curved slightly. "You're right, nobody does. But my price is pretty simple." Lena's stomach dropped. She'd heard this before. Men offering help with strings attached, offers that turned into debts she couldn't repay. "I'm not interested." "You haven't heard the offer yet." "Don't need to." "Your daughter needs a birth certificate," he said, and Lena went still. "Can't get one without the father's signature unless you go through legal channels. That takes time, money, lawyers, things you don't have." "How do you—" "I pay attention." He moved closer still, close enough that Lena could see his eyes were actually very dark brown, almost black. "I can make that problem go away. Get your daughter a legal identity, no father's signature required. Clean, permanent, no questions asked." Lena's heart pounded. "That's not possible." It is if you know the right people. And you know the right people. I am the right people." The way he said it, calm, certain, like he was discussing the weather, made Lena's skin prickle. This wasn't some good Samaritan. This was someone who operated outside normal channels, someone who had the kind of power that came from places she probably didn't want to know about. "Who are you?" she asked. "Someone who can help you." He paused. "If you're willing to accept it." "In exchange for what?" "Dinner." Lena blinked. "What?" "Dinner. One meal. You, me, conversation. That's it." That doesn't make sense." "Doesn't have to make sense." He finished his coffee, crushed the cup one-handed. "It's my offer. Take it or leave it." "Why would you do that? You don't know me. You don't know anything about—" "I know you're alone in a hospital at 2:30 in the morning with a newborn and no options. I know the father just walked away and isn't coming back. I know you're scared." His voice softened slightly. "And I know that fear makes people do desperate things, so I'm offering you an alternative. I could be anyone, a criminal, a liar. So could I. The honesty of it stopped her. He wasn't pretending to be noble, wasn't dressing up his offer in false kindness. Just stating facts. He had something she needed, and he wanted something in return. The directness was almost refreshing. This is insane, Lena said. Probably. I should tell you to leave me alone. You should. But you can really get her a birth certificate? A real one? I can. Lena looked down at her daughter. The baby had finished the bottle, was starting to drift off again with that milky-mouthed contentment of the very young, so trusting. So completely unaware that her entire future was hanging on a decision her mother was about to make in a hospital hallway with a stranger who might be dangerous and was definitely offering something impossible. What's your name? Lena asked. Lucien. Lucien. She tested the name. It felt foreign on her tongue, formal. I'm Lena. I know. Right, because you've been watching me. Yes. And if I say yes to this dinner, when would it happen? After your daughter has her paperwork? After you've had time to settle somewhere, get some sleep? I'm not a monster, Lena. You might be. I might be, he agreed, but I'm honest about it. Can your daughter's father say the same? The question hit harder than it should have. Caleb had lied to her about so many things, about loving her, about being there, about building a future together. All pretty words that had dissolved the second things got difficult. This stranger, this Lucian, was at least being direct about what he wanted. How do I know you won't hurt me? Lena asked quietly. You don't. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be reassuring. It's meant to be true. Lucian pulled a card from his pocket, held it out. Here's what I can give you. A birth certificate for your daughter within 48 hours. A safe place to stay until you figure out your next step. And a promise that if you decide you don't want to have dinner with me after all that, I'll walk away. No strings, no threats, no consequences. Lena stared at the card. It was matte black with silver lettering. Just a phone number, no name, no business information. Why would you do that? She asked. Why help me if I might just walk away after? Call it an investment in goodwill. His expression didn't change. Or call it curiosity. Either way, the offer stands. Lena's hand shook as she reached for the card. The moment her fingers touched it, she felt like she was crossing some invisible line, stepping from one life into another. The smart thing would be to refuse, to walk away, to figure this out on her own somehow. But she had $47 and nowhere to sleep, and a baby who needed formula and diapers and a future, and this stranger was offering her all of that for the price of one dinner. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay? Lucien's expression shifted, just slightly. Satisfaction, maybe, or something darker. Good. What's your daughter's name? She doesn't have one yet. You'll need to pick one, for the paperwork. Lena looked down at the sleeping baby. She'd had names picked out, discussed with Caleb, debated over dinner, written in journals she'd kept during her pregnancy. But all those names felt wrong now, tainted by the future she'd imagined that would never happen. Grace, she said suddenly. The name came from nowhere, or from somewhere deep she'd forgotten about. Her grandmother's middle name. Grace Whitmore. Grace, Lucian nodded. It suits her. How would you know? You haven't even looked at her. I'm looking at her mother, that's enough. Something in the way he said it made Lena's breath catch. She realized suddenly that this man had been watching her for an hour, not just out of boredom or curiosity, but with real interest. He'd seen her crying, seen her arguing with Caleb, seen her at her absolute lowest point, and he'd still made this offer. I need to ask you something, Lena said, and I need you to tell me the truth. All right. Are you a good person? Lucian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured, careful. No, I'm not. But I keep my promises, and I protect what's mine. That's more than most good people can say. I'm not yours. Not yet. But the word sent a chill through her. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm patient, and it means when I want something, I don't give up easily. He stepped back, giving her space. Call that number tomorrow. My people will handle everything. You and Grace will be taken care of. Your people? People who work for me. Doing what? Various things. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting tonight. Lucien moved toward the elevator. Get some rest, Lena. You look like you're about to fall over. Where am I supposed to rest? I told you I don't have third floor, room 312. It's a private recovery room not being used right now. Doors unlocked. There's a bed, a bathroom, privacy. Stay there tonight. Lena's eyes widened. How did you... I told you. I know people. The elevator dinged. And Lena? What? Your daughter's father is an idiot, but his loss is my opportunity. The doors opened. I'll be seeing you. He stepped inside, and just like that, he was gone. Lena stood in the hallway, holding Grace and the black card, her mind spinning. This was crazy. Taking help from a stranger who admitted he wasn't a good person, who'd been watching her, who clearly operated in spaces that existed outside normal society. Everything about this screamed danger. But Grace made a small sound in her sleep, and Lena thought about the $47 and the locked apartment and the 30 minutes until they'd be forced out into the November cold. What choice do I have? She whispered to her daughter. What choice do we have? Grace didn't answer, just kept sleeping, trusting completely that her mother would figure this out. Lena looked at the card again. The number gleamed silver in the fluorescent light. Then she looked at the elevator, then at the directory on the wall near the waiting area. Third floor, room 312. She made her decision. 10 minutes later, Lena pushed open the door to room 312. It was exactly as Lucien had described, a private recovery room with a proper bed, a chair that reclined, a private bathroom. The lights were off, but there was enough glow from the hallway that she could navigate. She settled Grace in the bassinet that was standard in every room, then collapsed onto the bed without even taking off her shoes. Her body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She should be terrified, should be questioning every choice that had led her here, should be worried about what she'd just agreed to. But exhaustion won over fear, and within minutes, Lena was asleep. She dreamed of dark eyes and silver cards, and a voice that promised protection at a price she couldn't yet calculate. When she woke 6 hours later to Grace's crying, the sun was up and someone had left a bag outside the door. Inside, diapers, formula, baby clothes in newborn sizes, a charged portable battery for her phone, and an envelope with $500 in cash. No note, no explanation, just help, provided exactly as promised. Lena sat on the hospital bed, feeding Grace while her phone charged, and tried to figure out what kind of man could arrange all of this overnight, what kind of power he must have, what kind of world he operated in, and what exactly he wanted from her that was worth all of this investment. The black card sat on the bedside table, waiting. Lena waited 2 days before calling the number. 2 days of living in that hospital room like a ghost, sneaking to the cafeteria for food she could barely afford, changing Grace's diapers with supplies from the mysterious bag, and trying to convince herself she had other options. She didn't. By the third morning, with the cleaning staff starting to ask questions and her cash down to $200, Lena pulled out the black card. Her hand shook as she dialed. 1 ring, 2. Ms. Whitmore. The voice that answered wasn't Lucy Yen's. It was female, professional, with the kind of crispness that came from expensive schools and high-level positions. We've been expecting your call. Who is this? My name is Diane. I work for Mr. Moretti. He asked me to handle your arrangements. Arrangements? Like Lena was a business transaction, which she supposed she was. I need to speak to him, Lena said. Mr. Moretti is unavailable at the moment, but I can assist you with everything you need. First, let's discuss housing. I don't need... You're currently residing illegally in a hospital recovery room. Diane's tone didn't change, but the statement landed like a slap. That's not sustainable. Mr. Moretti has secured an apartment for you and your daughter. It's fully furnished, utilities included, safe neighborhood. You can move in today. Lena's throat tightened. I can't afford... It's handled. For how long? 6 months, with option to extend. 6 months. Lena closed her eyes, holding Grace tighter. 6 months of stability, of not wondering where they'd sleep, of being able to focus on her daughter instead of survival. It felt impossible. What about the birth certificate? She asked. Being processed as we speak. You'll have it within 48 hours, exactly as Mr. Moretti promised. Grace Whitmore, correct? Yes. Good. Now, I'll text you the apartment address. A car will pick you up from the hospital in 1 hour. Bring everything you have, which I understand isn't much. Additional supplies will be delivered this afternoon. Wait, I haven't agreed to... You called the number, Ms. Whitmore. That constitutes agreement. Diane paused. Unless you'd like to change your mind. Lena looked around the hospital room, at the single bag of supplies, at Grace sleeping in the borrowed bassinet. She thought about Caleb's words, figure it out, you're a survivor, and how hollow they sounded now. No, she said quietly. I'm not changing my mind. Excellent. The car will be there at 11. Oh, and Ms. Whitmore? What? Welcome to Mr. Moretti's protection. You'll find it's quite comprehensive. The line went dead. Lena sat there, phone in hand, trying to process what had just happened. She'd made the call expecting to negotiate, to understand what she was agreeing to. Instead, she'd been swept into something already in motion, decisions made, arrangements completed. Lucien Moretti, whoever he really was, didn't ask permission. He simply acted. The text came through 30 seconds later. An address in Riverside District, the kind of neighborhood Lena had walked through once or twice but never imagined living in. Safe streets, good schools, the type of place where people didn't worry about break-ins or gunshots at night. 1 hour. Lena stood, started gathering their meager belongings. Everything she owned fit in one diaper bag and a plastic hospital bag. 24 years of life, reduced to what she could carry. She dressed Grace in one of the new outfits from the mysterious delivery, soft cotton, better quality than anything Lena had bought during her pregnancy. We're doing this, she whispered to her daughter. I don't know if it's smart, but we're doing it. Grace yawned, entirely unconcerned with her mother's crisis of conscience. At exactly 11 o'clock, Lena's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Car waiting at main entrance. Black sedan. She made her way downstairs, half expecting someone to stop her, to question why she'd been occupying a room for 3 days. No one did. It was like she'd been invisible the entire time, or like someone had made sure she wouldn't be bothered. The sedan was exactly where the text said it would be. The driver, a man in his 50s with gray hair and a professional demeanor, stepped out when he saw her. Miss Whitmore? Yes. Let me help you with that. He took the diaper bag before Lena could protest, opened the back door. The interior was spotless, smelling faintly of leather and something expensive. A car seat was already installed, proper and secure. How did you know what size? Lena asked. Mr. Moretti is thorough. The driver waited while Lena settled Grace in the seat, then closed the door gently. My name's Vincent. I'll be your driver when you need one. I don't need a driver. You do now. Vincent didn't elaborate, just got in the front seat and pulled smoothly into traffic. Lena watched the hospital disappear behind them, that strange liminal space that had sheltered them for 3 days fading into memory. She felt like she was leaving one life and entering another, crossing a threshold she couldn't see but definitely felt. The drive took 20 minutes. Vincent didn't try to make conversation, which Lena appreciated. She was too busy staring out the window, watching the neighborhoods change from industrial to commercial to residential, buildings getting nicer, streets getting cleaner. When they finally pulled up to a brick apartment complex with actual landscaping and a security gate, Lena's stomach clenched. This can't be right, she said. 3rd floor, unit 312. Vincent handed her a key ring. Everything's ready for you. How much does this place cost? That's not your concern. It is if I'm supposed to pay for it eventually. Vincent met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Mr. Moretti doesn't operate on payment plans, Ms. Whitmore. When he gives something, it's given. The only debt you owe is the dinner you agreed to. One dinner, for an apartment like this, for a birth certificate, for safety. It still didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. But Grace was starting to fuss, and the November wind was cold, and the apartment building had a security gate and real windows, and probably heat that actually worked. So Lena got out of the car, let Vincent carry their bags, and followed him inside. The apartment was better than anywhere Lena had ever lived. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, living room with furniture that matched. The walls were painted soft gray, the floors were actual hardwood, and someone had stocked the fridge with groceries. Real groceries. Milk, eggs, bread, fresh fruit, vegetables. Not the random canned goods and ramen Lena had been surviving on for months. The nursery's set up, Vincent said, gesturing to the second bedroom. If you need anything changed, just call the number. Lena walked into the nursery and stopped breathing. A crib with a mobile, a changing table fully stocked with diapers and wipes, a rocking chair by the window. Soft blankets, tiny clothes organized in drawers, even a nightlight shaped like a moon. It looked like something from a magazine, the kind of room Lena had looked at online during her pregnancy and knew she'd never afford. "This is too much," she said. "It's what Mr. Moretti wanted." Why? Why would he do all this? Vincent set down the bags. "I've worked for Mr. Moretti for 12 years. I learned a long time ago not to question his reasons. He saw you needed help. He provided it. That's what he does." "For everyone? He just helps random people?" "No, not for everyone." Vincent headed for the door. "My number's programmed in the phone. You need anything, you call, day or night." "What phone?" He pointed to the kitchen counter where a new smartphone sat charging. "That phone, it's yours." "I can't accept—" "You already did, Ms. Whitmore, when you made the call." Vincent paused at the door. "One more thing. Mr. Moretti will contact you about dinner in a few days. Give you time to settle in, but when he does reach out, don't make him wait. He doesn't like waiting." Then he was gone, leaving Lena alone in an apartment that felt like a dream she'd accidentally walked into. Grace started crying, actually crying now, not just fussing, and Lena snapped back to reality. Right. She was a mother. She had a baby who needed feeding and changing and all the normal things babies needed, regardless of whether their mother had just made a deal with a mysterious stranger who apparently had unlimited resources and unclear motivations. She settled into the rocking chair, fed Grace, and tried not to think about the price tag on everything surrounding them. The birth certificate arrived exactly 48 hours later. Lena opened the envelope with shaking hands. There it was, official and stamped and completely legal. Grace Elizabeth Whitmore, born November 18th at St. Catherine's Hospital. Mother, Lena Marie Whitmore. Father, blank. No Caleb, no paternity test required. No legal battles. Just a clean document that gave her daughter an identity, a social security number, a way to exist in the world. Lena cried holding it, real, messy sobs that she'd been holding back for days. Because this was what Caleb had denied them. This simple piece of paper that said Grace was real, was hers, was here. And Lucien Moretti had provided it without question, without demands, without making her prove anything. Her phone rang. The new one. "Hello?" "Miss Whitmore, Diane again. I trust the birth certificate arrived?" "Yes, thank you. I don't know how you Did you really want to know?" Lena thought about that. The answer was probably no. Whatever strings Lucien had pulled, whatever favors he'd called in or rules he'd bent, she was better off not understanding the mechanics. "No," she admitted. "I guess not." "Smart. Now, Mr. Moretti would like to schedule dinner. Are you available Friday evening?" 3 days. Lena's stomach flipped. "I don't have anyone to watch Grace. A nanny will be provided. I don't want a stranger watching my daughter." The nanny is fully vetted, CPR certified, with 15 years of experience. She'll arrive at 6. Dinner reservations are at 7:30. Address will be delivered Friday afternoon. Your size is on file. "My size is on file," Lena repeated flatly. "Of course it is." "Mr. Moretti is thorough," Diane said, and Lena heard the echo of Vincent's words. "Do you have any dietary restrictions?" "No, but, Excellent. The restaurant is Belmont, downtown. Vincent will drive you. Any questions?" Lena had about 1,000 questions, but the main one was, what does he want from me? "That's between you and Mr. Moretti. I simply make arrangements." "Right, arrangements. Is that a yes to Friday, Miss Whitmore?" Lena looked around the apartment. The nursery she'd never dreamed of having, the fridge full of food, the birth certificate lying on the coffee table like a miracle. She'd agreed to one dinner. She owed him that much, at minimum. "Yes," she said. "Friday. Perfect. Enjoy your week." The line went dead and Lena was left staring at her phone, trying to figure out how her life had become something orchestrated by a man she'd met once in a hospital hallway. The week passed in a strange haze. Lena spent her days adjusting to the apartment, learning Grace's rhythms, trying to build some kind of routine. She ventured out twice, once to the grocery store, where her new debit card worked without question, despite her never setting up an account, and once to a park 3 blocks away where other mothers pushed strollers and talked about sleep schedules and teething. Like these were the biggest concerns in their lives. Lena didn't talk to anyone. She just watched, wondering if she'd ever have that kind of normal again. Friday arrived too fast. The dress was delivered at 2 o'clock, exactly as promised. Lena opened the box and immediately knew she was in over her head. It was black, elegant, the kind of thing she'd seen in store windows but never touched. The fabric felt expensive between her fingers, and when she tried it on, after feeding Grace and pumping and getting herself cleaned up for the first time in days, it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Lucien Moretti was thorough. The nanny arrived at 6. Her name was Margaret, she was in her 60s, and she had the kind of calm, capable energy that made Lena's panic ease slightly. She walked through the apartment, checked the nursery, asked about Grace's schedule, and nodded approvingly at everything. "Mr. Moretti hired me when his nephew was born," Margaret said, settling into the rocking chair with Grace in her arms like she'd been doing it for years. "I know my way around babies. You go have your dinner. This little one will be fine. You'll call if anything." "I'll call." Margaret smiled. "But I won't need to. Go." Vincent arrived at 7. Lena grabbed her purse, a cheap thing that clashed with the expensive dress, and headed downstairs, her heart pounding. This was insane. She was going to dinner with a man who'd orchestrated her entire life for the past week, who admitted he wasn't a good person, who clearly operated in spaces that existed outside the law. But he'd kept his promises. Every single one. The restaurant was in downtown, in one of those buildings with doormen and valet parking, and the kind of lighting that made everything look softer, more expensive. Vincent pulled up to the entrance, opened her door. "Mr. Moretti is waiting inside," he said. "Enjoy your evening, Ms. Whitmore." Lena stepped out, smoothed down her dress, and walked through doors held open by staff who looked at her like she belonged there. The interior was all dark wood and low lighting, tables spaced far enough apart that conversation stayed private. A hostess approached immediately. "Miss Whitmore, right this way?" She was led through the restaurant to a private booth in the back corner, and there he was. Lucien Moretti sat alone, dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than Lena's entire wardrobe. He looked different than he had in the hospital. More polished, more dangerous, but his eyes were the same. Dark, calculating, missing nothing. He stood when she approached. "Lena." "Lucien, you look beautiful." "You orchestrated that too." She slid into the booth across from him, trying to calm her racing pulse. The dress, the nanny, the restaurant, all of it. "I wanted you to be comfortable." "Comfortable?" Lena repeated. "That's what we're calling this?" His mouth curved slightly. "Would you prefer I'd left you to figure it out on your own?" "I prefer to understand what's happening here." "We're having dinner. That was the agreement." "Don't play games with me." Lena leaned forward. "You've spent, I don't even know how much money. Thousands? More? On an apartment, a birth certificate, furniture, food, all of it. For one dinner with a broke single mother you met in a hospital. That doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense to me." "Then explain it." Lucien was quiet for a moment, studying her. Then he leaned back, gestured to the menu. "Order first, then we'll talk." "I'm not hungry." "You're always hungry. You've been rationing food for months." He said it casually, but the knowledge behind it made Lena's skin prickle. "Order something. You're too thin." A waiter appeared before Lena could respond, poured water, recited specials she barely heard. She ordered something at random, pasta, she thought, and waited until they were alone again. "How do you know I've been rationing food?" she asked quietly. "I pay attention." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting right now." Lucien took a sip of his wine. "Tell me about Caleb." The name hit like ice water. "What about him?" "How long were you together?" "Why does that matter?" "Humor me." Lena's jaw tightened, but she answered. 2 years. We met at the diner where I worked. He was charming at first, made me feel like I mattered. Then things changed. He isolated you. How did you? It's a pattern. Men like him always follow the same pattern. Lucien's voice was cold now. They find someone vulnerable, make them dependent, then pull away when things get difficult. You were pregnant, needing support, and he cut you loose. You don't know anything about it. I know more than you think. Something in his tone made Lena pause. What does that mean? It means Caleb Ross is a problem, and I solve problems. The words hung between them, heavy with implications Lena wasn't sure she wanted to explore. The waiter returned with their food. The pasta was some kind of truffle situation that smelled incredible, but Lena couldn't bring herself to eat. What kind of problems do you solve? She asked. The kind most people can't handle themselves. Are you in the Mafia? Lucien smiled, actually smiled. That's very direct. You told me to be smart. Smart means asking direct questions. Fair. He cut into his steak with precise movements. I run several businesses, some are entirely legal, others operate in gray areas, and yes, some cross lines that most people find uncomfortable. So yes, you're in the Mafia. I prefer to think of myself as an entrepreneur with flexible ethics. That's not better. It's honest. He met her eyes. I told you I wasn't a good person, Lena, but I keep my promises. I protect what's mine, and I don't lie about who I am. I'm not yours, Lena said, echoing her words from the hospital. Not yet, he replied, same as before. But you could be. Her heart kicked against her ribs. What does that mean? It means I'm interested in you. Have been since I saw you in that hospital corridor, crying over a man who didn't deserve your tears. You were broken and desperate, and still fighting, still trying to figure out how to protect your daughter. That kind of strength is rare. You don't know me. I know enough. You were working 2 jobs while pregnant. Caleb's mother called you 17 times the week before you gave birth. I'm guessing with accusations and threats. You pawned your grandmother's ring 3 months ago to pay rent. You haven't spoken to your father in 8 years. You're 24 years old, you've been on your own since you were 19, and you've survived everything life threw at you with nothing but determination and stubbornness. Lena's blood ran cold. How do you know all that? I told you, I pay attention, and I have resources. You investigated me. Of course I did. I don't make investments blind. I'm not an investment. You are. Just not a financial one. Lucien set down his fork, leaned forward. I saw something in you that night, Lena. Something I recognized. You're a survivor. You adapt. You don't break even when you should. Those are valuable traits. Valuable for what? For surviving in my world. The restaurant suddenly felt too small, too quiet. Lena's hands trembled. I don't want to be in your world. You're already in it. The moment you accepted my help, you stepped into my territory. The apartment, the birth certificate, all of it. It ties you to me. You understand that, don't you? You said there were no strings. I said I wouldn't force you. That's different. His voice softened slightly. But we both know you're not leaving. You have nowhere else to go, and Grace needs stability. I'm offering you both. The question is whether you're willing to accept what comes with it. Lena's mind raced. She'd known this dinner would come with consequences, but she'd imagined something simple. Maybe he wanted company, maybe he was lonely, maybe he had some kind of savior complex. She hadn't imagined this, a deliberate recruitment, a calculated pull into a world she didn't understand. What exactly are you offering? She asked carefully. Protection. Real protection. Not just an apartment and groceries, but complete security. For you and Grace. No one touches you, no one threatens you, no one treats you like you're disposable. You matter. Because I say you matter. That's how my world works. In exchange for what? Your time. Your company. Your trust, eventually. He paused. And your loyalty. You want me to work for you. I want you to be part of my life. There's a difference. Not really. There is. Working for me is transactional. Being part of my life is personal. Lucien's eyes held hers. I don't make this offer lightly, Lena. I don't bring people into my inner circle unless I'm certain they belong there. But I think you do. I think you're exactly what I've been looking for. What? A desperate single mother? A strong woman who knows how to survive, who fights for what matters, who doesn't crumble under pressure. He reached across the table and Lena flinched before she could stop herself. He noticed, pulled back slightly. I won't hurt you. That's not what this is. Then what is it? It's me offering you a choice. Stay in the apartment, accept my protection, let me help you build a real life. Or walk away right now. I'll make sure you and Grace are settled somewhere safe. I'll leave you alone, and you'll never hear from me again. Lena stared at him. You'd really let me walk away? Just like that? I keep my promises. But you don't want me to. No, I don't. The honesty was startling. I want you to stay. I want you to trust me. And eventually I want you to choose this life willingly, not because you have no other options. Why? Why me? Lucien was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower, more careful. Because when I watched you in that hospital, holding your daughter and trying not to fall apart, I saw something I recognized. Someone who'd been abandoned by the people who should have protected them. Someone who had to become hard to survive. That's my story too, Lena. Different details, but the same core truth. And I thought, maybe I could give you what no one gave me. A real choice. Real protection. Real loyalty. The vulnerability in his words caught Lena off guard. For the first time since they'd sat down, she saw past the polish and power to something rawer underneath. He meant it. Whatever this was, however calculated and strategic, some part of it was genuine. I have one condition, she said slowly. Name it. You don't touch Grace? Ever. She's off limits. Whatever this is, whatever happens between us, she stays out of it. She's innocent. Agreed. No hesitation. I would never harm a child, Lena. That's a line I don't cross. And if I say yes to this, whatever this is, what happens? You stay in the apartment. I make sure you and Grace are safe. We spend time together. Dinners, conversations, building trust. And when you're ready, I introduce you to the rest of my world. The people I work with. The life I lead. All of it. What if I'm never ready? Then we adjust. I'm patient. Everyone keeps saying that about you. It's true. He smiled slightly. I've waited years to build what I have. I can wait for you. Lena looked down at her untouched pasta. Her head spun with implications, with dangers she couldn't fully calculate. This was insane. She should say no, should take whatever safe settlement he offered and run as far as possible. But Grace needed her to be smart, not scared. And smart meant recognizing that Lucien Moretti had resources she'd never access on her own. Smart meant accepting that sometimes survival required compromise. Okay, she heard herself say. I'll stay, but I want regular check-ins. I want to know what's happening, what I'm involved in. No surprises. Fair. And I want to keep looking for work, real work. I'm not just going to sit in that apartment and wait for you to take care of everything. Also fair. Though you should focus on Grace first. She's barely a week old. Don't tell me how to be a mother. I wouldn't dare. Lucien signaled the waiter, who appeared instantly. We'll take dessert, and bring the lady a proper meal. She hasn't touched her pasta. I'm not... You need to eat, Lena. That's not negotiable. The authority in his voice should have made her bristle, but somehow it didn't. It felt like care, even if it came wrapped in control. The waiter returned with fresh pasta and some kind of chocolate dessert that looked obscene, and this time Lena ate. She was hungrier than she'd admitted, and the food was better than anything she'd had in months. Lucien watched her eat with that same careful attention he'd shown in the hospital, taking her in, learning her patterns, filing away information he'd use later. It should have been creepy. Instead, it felt like being seen, really seen, for the first time in longer than she could remember. Can I ask you something? Lena said between bites. Always. Do you have family? Something shifted in his expression. I did. They're gone now. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. He finished his wine. I have people who work for me. That's family enough. That's sad. Is it? I find it practical. You can't replace family with employees. You can when the employees are more loyal than family ever was. Lucien stood, offered his hand. Come on. I want to show you something. Lena hesitated, then took his hand. His grip was warm, solid, and he pulled her up with easy strength. They walked through the restaurant, Lucien nodding to staff who stepped aside immediately and out into the November night. Vincent was waiting with the car, but Lucien waved him off. We'll walk. Sir, it's not... We'll be fine, Vincent. The driver looked unhappy but didn't argue. Lucien guided Lena down the street, away from the restaurant district toward the waterfront. The city glittered around them, lights reflecting off the river that cut through downtown. Where are we going? Lena asked. Nowhere specific. I just thought you might want air. You mean you wanted me away from witnesses? That too. He smiled slightly. But mainly I wanted to talk without waiters hovering. They walked in silence for a block. The cold bit through Lena's dress, and Lucien shrugged out of his jacket, draped it over her shoulders before she could protest. It smelled like expensive cologne and something else, something distinctly him. I need to tell you something, Lucien said finally. About Caleb. Lena's stomach dropped. What about him? He's in trouble. Serious trouble. What kind of trouble? Lucien stopped walking, turned to face her. The kind that doesn't go away. He made some bad decisions, got involved with people he shouldn't have, people I know, and now he owes money he can't pay. How much money? $3 million. The number was so absurd, Lena almost laughed. That's impossible. Caleb doesn't have that kind of... He doesn't. That's the problem. Lucien's voice was grim. He was running a scheme, investment fraud, basically. Promised returns he couldn't deliver, pocketed the difference. It worked for a while. Then it didn't. And these people he owes, they're connected to you? In a manner of speaking. Lena's blood ran cold. Did you know about this? When you approached me in the hospital, did you already know? Yes. The honesty hurt more than a lie would have. So this whole thing, helping me, the apartment, all of it, it was about Caleb? No, it was about you. Lucien stepped closer. But Caleb being a problem makes it more complicated. How complicated? The people he owes don't forgive debts, Lena. And when they can't get money, they take other things. Leverage, collateral, things that matter to the person who owes them. Understanding crashed over her like ice water. Grace, they'd use Grace to get to Caleb. They would, if they knew about her. But they don't, because of you. Because of me. Lucien's expression was deadly serious. The birth certificate you have? It's clean. No connection to Caleb anywhere in the system. As far as official records show, Grace is yours alone. No father listed, no paper trail. You're invisible to anyone looking for Caleb's family. You planned this from the beginning. I saw an opportunity to protect an innocent woman and child from becoming collateral damage. Yes, I planned it. Lena's mind reeled. How long have I been in danger? Since Caleb walked away in that hospital, maybe before, and you didn't think to tell me? I'm telling you now. Now that I've agreed to stay, Lena pulled away from him, anger flooding through her exhaustion. You manipulated me, made me think I had a choice when really, you did have a choice, you still do. Lucien's voice cut through her panic. You can walk away right now. I'll make sure you're protected, that Grace is safe. But you'll do it alone, without my resources, without my connections. Or you can stay, accept my protection fully, and let me handle the Caleb problem completely. Handle it how? However necessary. The implication was clear. Lena's breath came faster. You'd kill him. If that's what it takes to keep you and Grace safe? Yes. I can't. Lena pressed her hands to her face. This is insane. This whole thing is insane. It's survival, Lena. That's all it's ever been. You survived Caleb. You survived being abandoned. You survived that hospital with $47 and no plan. This is just the next step. The next step is becoming complicit in murder. The next step is accepting that you can't control everything, that sometimes staying alive means letting someone else handle the ugly parts. Lucien's voice softened. I'm not asking you to pull the trigger. I'm asking you to let me protect you the way no one ever protected you before. Completely. Without hesitation. Without limits. Lena looked at him. This man who'd orchestrated her rescue and her entanglement in equal measure, who'd admitted he wasn't good but kept his promises anyway, who was offering her safety at a price she was only beginning to understand. If I say yes, she said quietly, if I let you do this, I'm tied to you. Really tied to you. Yes. And there's no walking away after that. There's always a choice. But yes, it becomes harder. Why are you doing this? Really? Lucien looked at her for a long moment. Because I saw you fighting to protect your daughter with nothing but determination and a dead phone battery, and I thought, that's someone worth protecting, someone worth keeping, someone who understands what survival actually costs. He reached out, cupped her face gently. I'm not a good man, Lena, but I could be good to you if you let me. The touch was careful, almost tentative, like he was afraid she'd break, or like he was afraid she'd run. Lena thought about Grace, sleeping safely in an apartment that wouldn't exist without this man. She thought about Caleb, who'd walked away and left them with nothing, who'd apparently been building a disaster that could have destroyed them both. She thought about the birth certificate in her purse, clean, safe, untraceable. She thought about survival and what it actually cost. Okay, she whispered. Okay, do what you need to do. Something fierce flickered in Lucien's eyes. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He smiled then, really smiled, and it transformed his face. That's my girl. The possessiveness should have scared her. Instead, it felt like an anchor in a world that had been shifting under her feet for days. What happens now? Lena asked. Now I take you home. You sleep. You take care of Grace. And I handle everything else. Lucien's hand dropped to her shoulder, solid and warm. You don't have to worry anymore, Lena. You're under my protection now. That means something in my world. It means everything. Vincent appeared with the car as if summoned. The drive back to her apartment was quiet, Lucien's hand resting near hers on the seat between them, not touching, but close enough to feel. When they arrived, Margaret reported that Grace had been perfect, had eaten and slept, and was currently out cold in her crib. Lucien paid her. Lena saw him hand over cash, far too much, and walked Lena to her door. Get some rest, he said. I'll be in touch soon. How soon? Soon enough. He touched her face again, that same careful gentleness. You did well tonight. Better than I expected. I didn't do anything. You trusted me. That's everything. Then he was gone, leaving Lena standing in her doorway, wearing his jacket, trying to understand what she'd just agreed to. She checked on Grace, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that her mother had just made a deal with the devil, and collapsed on her own bed still in her dress. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Sleep well. You're safe now. Lena stared at the message for a long time, then typed back. You better be right about this. His response came immediately. I'm always right. Despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the absolute insanity of her situation, Lena found herself smiling. She'd made her choice. For better or worse, she was in Lucien Moretti's world now. And somehow, that felt less terrifying than being alone. Lena woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of voices outside her apartment. Not loud, controlled, professional, but distinct enough to pull her from the shallow sleep she'd been managing since Grace was born. She lay still for a moment, listening. Men's voices. At least 3, maybe 4. Speaking in low tones that carried through the door. Her heart kicked into overdrive. She slipped out of bed, grabbed her phone, moved to Grace's nursery. The baby was still asleep, oblivious. Lena positioned herself between the crib and the door, phone clutched in one hand, trying to decide if she should call 911 or the number Lucien had given her. The voices stopped. Then her phone buzzed, making her jump. A text from Lucien. Don't be afraid, my people are outside, you're safe. Before she could respond, another message. Go back to sleep. Everything's handled. Lena stood there in the dark nursery, adrenaline coursing through her, and tried to process what everything's handled actually meant. She moved to the window, careful not to disturb the curtain too much. The street below was quiet, empty except for a black SUV parked directly across from her building. As she watched, a man in dark clothing emerged from the side entrance of her building, spoke briefly to someone in the SUV, then got in. The vehicle didn't leave. They were guarding her. Right now, in the middle of the night, Lucien had people watching her apartment. She texted back, What happened? His response was immediate. Nothing you need to worry about. Sleep. That's not an answer. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, Someone was asking questions about Caleb's ex-girlfriend, questions that led here. They won't be asking anymore. Lena's hand shook. Won't be asking anymore. The implications of that phrase made her stomach turn. Did you kill someone? She typed, then deleted it. Tried again. How did you stop them? Lucienne, I made it clear that you're under my protection. That's a language people in my world understand. And if they don't understand, then they learn. Go to sleep, Lena. I'll explain everything tomorrow. Lena looked at Grace, sleeping peacefully in her expensive crib in the apartment paid for by a man who'd just had people asking questions dealt with. This was her life now. This was the price of safety. She went back to bed but didn't sleep. Just lay there listening to the silence, knowing that outside men with guns were standing between her and whatever Caleb had unleashed. Morning came gray and cold. Lena fed Grace, changed her, went through all the mechanical motions of early motherhood while her mind spun. She kept checking the window. The SUV was still there. Different vehicle, same position. How many people did Lucien have working for him? How much of her life was being monitored? Her phone rang at 9. Lucien. Did you sleep? He asked without preamble. No? I thought you might not. He sounded tired, like maybe he hadn't slept either. I'm sending a car. We need to talk, and I'd rather do it in person. I can't just leave Grace. Margaret's on her way. She'll be there in 10 minutes. Of course she would be. Of course Lucien had already arranged everything. I want the truth this time, Lena said. All of it, not the edited version. All right. I mean it, Lucien. If I'm in this, if Grace is in this, I need to know exactly what we're dealing with. I understand. The car will be there in 30 minutes. He hung up before she could respond. Margaret arrived exactly 10 minutes later, cheerful and competent as always. She took Grace without comment about the early morning call, settled into the rocking chair with the kind of ease that came from decades of practice. Lena gave her instructions she knew weren't necessary. Margaret had probably raised more children than Lena would ever meet, and tried to calm the panic rising in her chest. Vincent arrived at 9:30. The drive took them out of the city into areas Lena didn't recognize. Suburbs gave way to larger properties, gates and long driveways, and the kind of wealth that didn't advertise itself. They turned onto a private road, passed through security gates that opened without Vincent needing to stop, and pulled up to a house that looked like something from a magazine. No, not a house. An estate. Stone and glass sprawling across manicured grounds, with actual gardens and what looked like a separate guest house. This was where Lucien lived. This was the world he was inviting her into. Vincent opened her door. Mr. Moretti is in his office. I'll show you. The interior was all clean lines and expensive furniture, the kind of place where everything had its position and purpose. Original artwork on the walls. Lena recognized a few pieces from auction catalogs she'd browsed online once, back when she'd had dreams of that kind of life. The floors were marble, the ceilings high, and everything spoke of money that had been accumulating for generations. Lucien's office was at the back of the house, overlooking gardens that probably required a full-time staff. He stood at the window when she entered, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. He gestured for her to sit, finished his conversation, and turned to face her. He looked different here. More settled, maybe, or more himself. This was his territory, his domain, and it showed in the way he carried himself. Thank you for coming, he said. Did I have a choice? Always. But I'm glad you made this one. He moved to the desk, pulled out a folder. I promised you the truth, so here it is. All of it. Lena took the folder. Inside were documents, financial records, surveillance photos, printed emails. The first photo was Caleb, sitting in what looked like a casino. The timestamp was from 3 months ago. He's been gambling, Lucien said. Badly. The investment scheme I told you about? That was him trying to cover his losses. He took money from people connected to the Volkov family, Russian organized crime, very dangerous, and promised returns he couldn't deliver. When they started asking questions, he ran. Ran where? Mexico, initially, then Miami. He came back to the city 2 weeks ago. Lucien pointed to another photo. That's him meeting with Marcus Volkov, trying to negotiate more time. Lena stared at the image. Caleb looked scared, hunched over a table while a man in an expensive suit leaned in close. She'd never seen him look like that, small, frightened. The Caleb she'd known had been confident to the point of arrogance. They gave him 2 weeks to come up with at least $1 million, Lucian continued. That deadline was yesterday. And he didn't pay. He couldn't. He doesn't have it. So now the Volkovs are looking for leverage. Lucian pulled out another document. This is a transcript from a conversation between two of Volkov's men. They were discussing Caleb's background, his relationships, looking for pressure points. Your name came up. Lena's hands went cold. She scanned the document. It was in English, translated from Russian, clinical, and terrifying. They knew about her pregnancy. Knew Caleb had a daughter. Were actively looking for ways to use that information. When did you get this? She asked. 4 days ago. Before you even approached me. Yes. Lena looked up at him. So you knew. You knew they were looking for me and Grace before you ever offered to help. I did. And you didn't tell me. Would you have believed me? You were alone in a hospital, broke and desperate, and a stranger tells you that Russian mobsters might come after your newborn. You would have thought I was insane. So you lied by omission. I protected you by omission. There's a difference. Lucien sat on the edge of his desk. I couldn't let them find you, Lena. Once they knew you existed, once they confirmed you were real and Caleb actually cared about you, or about Grace, you would have become a target. So I made you disappear. The birth certificate. The birth certificate, the apartment in a neighborhood they'd never think to look, the new phone with a clean number, all of it. As far as the Volkovs know, Caleb's ex-girlfriend vanished. No forwarding address, no trail, nothing. You're a ghost. Lena's mind reeled. What about the hospital staff, my old landlord, people who knew me? The hospital has very strict privacy policies, especially for maternity patients. Easy to reinforce those with the right pressure. Your old landlord was paid to forget you lived there. Your phone records were scrubbed. It wasn't difficult. You'd already been living off the grid for weeks before you gave birth. Because I couldn't afford to exist, Lena said bitterly. Yes, which made my job easier. Lucien's expression softened. I know this is a lot, but you needed to understand why I did what I did, why I approached you. It wasn't just attraction or opportunity, though both of those played a part. It was necessity. You and Grace were in danger, and I was the only one who saw it coming. Why? The question burst out of her. Why did you care? Why go through all this trouble for a stranger? Lucien was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, less controlled, more raw. Because 10 years ago, I watched someone I cared about become collateral damage in a situation that wasn't their fault. The man she was involved with owed money to the wrong people. They used her to get to him, and when that didn't work, they killed her, just to make a point. Lena's breath caught. Lucien. Her name was Sophia. She was 23. She had nothing to do with any of it. She was just a woman who'd fallen in love with an idiot who made bad choices. His jaw tightened. I was younger then, less powerful. I couldn't stop it, couldn't save her. And I swore that if I ever had the chance to prevent that from happening again, I would, no matter what it cost. The vulnerability in his voice made Lena's throat tighten. This wasn't just strategy or business. This was personal, deeply, painfully personal. So when I saw you in that hospital, Lucien continued, holding your daughter and trying to figure out how to survive, and I knew that there were people looking for exactly that kind of vulnerability to exploit. I couldn't walk away. I couldn't let history repeat itself. You could have just warned me. And you would have done what? Run? Hide? You had no money, no resources, no way to protect yourself. Warning, you would have just scared you without actually helping. He moved closer. I needed to make you safe first. Then I could tell you the truth. Lena looked down at the documents in her lap. Evidence of Caleb's failures, of threats she hadn't known existed, of a whole world operating beneath the surface of her normal life. She should be angry, at Lucien for manipulating her, at Caleb for putting them in danger, at herself for not seeing any of this coming. But mostly, she just felt tired. What happens now? She asked. Now I handle the Caleb problem permanently. You're going to kill him. I'm going to eliminate the threat he represents. How that happens depends on several factors. Lucienne took the folder from her hands, set it aside. But you don't need to be involved in that part. You don't need to know the details. Yes, I do. You said you'd give me the truth. I said I'd give you the truth about the danger. The solution is my responsibility, not yours. He's Grace's father. Biologically, nothing more. Lucienne's voice hardened. He abandoned you both. He endangered you both. He doesn't get to claim that title now. I'm not defending him, but Grace might want to know someday. Grace will never know him. That's not negotiable. The authority in his tone left no room for argument. If you stay with me, if you accept my protection, then Caleb ceases to exist in your life. Completely. That's the price, Lena. And if I can't accept that price, then we find another solution, but it will be a lesser solution with more risk and less security. He touched her face, gentle despite the hard words. I can make you safe, or I can make you comfortable with the methods. I can't do both. Lena closed her eyes. She thought about the men outside her apartment last night, about the SUV still parked on her street, about Caleb meeting with Russian mobsters in casinos while she'd been rationing diapers and formula. She thought about Grace, innocent and perfect, who deserved better than becoming a pawn in someone else's game. Okay, she whispered. Do what you need to do. Just don't tell me the details. I won't. And promise me that Grace stays out of this, that she never has to know the kind of world we're in. I promise. She'll have a normal life, school, friends, all of it. She'll be protected without knowing she needs protection. How can you guarantee that? Because that's what I do, Lena. I control situations, I manage threats, and I take care of what's mine. His hand moved to her shoulder. You and Grace are mine now. That means I'll move mountains to keep you safe. The possessiveness should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt like the first solid ground she'd stood on in months. I need time, Lena said. Time to process all this. Time to figure out how to be a mother in the middle of whatever this is. Take all the time you need, but take it here. Here? Move in, you and Grace. The estate has plenty of rooms, round-the-clock security, everything you could need. You'll be safer here than anywhere else. Lena's eyes widened. That's moving too fast. It's practical. The Volkovs don't know about this place. It's registered under shell companies that can't be traced to me personally. Your apartment is secure, but this is impregnable. And honestly, his expression softened. I'd sleep better knowing you're here, knowing I can check on you without sending someone else. You barely know me. I know enough, and I want to know more. He paused. But if you're not ready, I understand. The apartment stays yours for as long as you need it. I won't push. Lena looked around the office, at the expensive furniture and the artwork, and the windows overlooking gardens that probably had their own security detail. This was a different world, a different life. One where she'd be taken care of, but also completely dependent on a man she'd known for less than 2 weeks. But Grace was safe here. That was what mattered. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. Take a few days. See how you feel. Lucienne straightened. In the meantime, I want you to meet some people. People who work for me, who you'll be interacting with if you stay in my life, but build trust slowly. Who? Come on, I'll introduce you. He led her out of the office, through hallways that seemed to go on forever, to a large kitchen where 3 people sat around a table. They looked up when Lucienne entered, and Lena saw the immediate shift in their posture. Respect, attention, maybe a little fear. Everyone, this is Lena Whitmore, Lucienne said. Lena, this is my inner circle. Marcus handles security. He gestured to a man in his 40s with a military bearing and sharp eyes. Elena manages my legitimate businesses. A woman in her 30s with severe features and an expensive suit. And you've met Vincent. They each nodded, sizing her up the way she was sizing them up. These were the people who made Lucienne's world run. The people who'd been watching her apartment last night, who'd scrubbed her records, who'd made her disappear. Is she moving in? Elena asked bluntly. We're discussing it, Lucienne said. The southeast wing would be best. More privacy, easier to secure. Elena spoke like this was a business decision, which Lena supposed it was. I'll have it prepared just in case. Thank you. Lucien's hand settled on Lena's back, proprietary but not aggressive. Lena's going to be around more. I want everyone to treat her with the same respect you'd show me. Understood? A chorus of agreement. Marcus studied Lena with particular intensity, like he was calculating threat levels and security protocols. The daughter too? Grace. Yes. We'll need to adjust protocols. Infants require different considerations. Handle it. They discussed logistics like she wasn't there. Security details, schedule adjustments, resource allocation. Lena felt like she was watching a corporation pivot to accommodate a new acquisition, which, she supposed, she was. Can I ask a question? Lena said, interrupting their flow. Everyone looked at her. Lucienne nodded. How many people work for you? She asked. Total? Depends on how you count, Lucienne said. Directly? About 40. If you include all my business ventures, a few hundred. And they all know about me? The relevant ones do. The ones who need to keep you safe. So I'm what? A company-wide memo? Elena smiled slightly, the first crack in her severe expression. More like a protected asset. We take those very seriously. I'm not an asset. You are now, Marcus said, not unkindly. That's not an insult. It's just how we function. Everyone and everything in Lucien's orbit gets categorized, protected, managed. You and your daughter are high priority. That means resources, attention, complete security coverage. It sounds exhausting. It's survival, Elena said. You get used to it. Lena wondered if she wanted to get used to it. If this was the kind of life she could build for Grace, surrounded by professionals who discussed them like chess pieces, protected but also managed, safe but never truly free. Lucien must have sensed her hesitation. Why don't we give Lena some space? She's had a lot thrown at her today. The others filed out, leaving Lena alone with Lucien in the kitchen. He moved to the coffee maker, industrial, and probably cost more than her first car, and started brewing. They're intense, Lena said. They're good at their jobs. And they'll protect you like you're their own family once they accept you fully. And if they don't accept me, they will. I don't give them a choice. He poured 2 cups, handed her one. But for what it's worth, I think they already like you. Elena doesn't smile for just anyone. She barely smiled. Like I said, for Elena, that was practically a warm embrace. Despite everything, Lena laughed. The sound felt foreign after days of tension and fear. Lucien smiled at her reaction, genuine and almost boyish. There she is, he said softly. I was wondering when I'd see that again. See what? The woman who's not terrified, who can still find humor in absurdity. He leaned against the counter. You've been in survival mode so long, I think you forgot how to just exist. Hard to exist when you're broke and homeless. You're neither of those things now. Because of you. Because you were smart enough to accept help when you needed it. Lucien took a sip of his coffee. A lot of people can't do that. Pride gets in the way. I didn't have the luxury of pride. No, but you had the wisdom to recognize that. That's rarer than you think. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Lena looked out the window at the gardens, watched 2 men in dark suits patrol the perimeter. Security never stopped here. Protection was constant, pervasive, suffocating, but also comforting in a way she hadn't expected. Can I see the southeast wing? She asked suddenly. Lucien's expression shifted. Surprise, pleasure, hope. You're considering it? I'm considering everything. I want to see what you're offering before I make a decision. Fair enough. He led her through more hallways, up a staircase with actual marble railings, to a wing of the house that felt separate from the rest. The rooms here were smaller, more intimate. Bedrooms with attached bathrooms, a sitting area with comfortable furniture, windows that overlooked the gardens with their endless security. This would be yours, Lucien said, opening a door to a master suite. Grace's room would be next door, connected through that door. Fully monitored, climate-controlled, everything you'd need. The rooms were beautiful, elegant without being ostentatious, comfortable without being cluttered. Lena could see Grace growing up here, playing in these halls, safe behind layers of protection she'd never see. What about school? Lena asked. When she's older, she can't live in a bubble. She won't. We'll hire tutors initially, then private school when she's ready. Normal activities, normal friends. She'll just happen to have security that her friends don't notice. How do you hide security from children? The same way you hide anything from children. You make it normal. A driver is just a driver. The nanny does background checks, friends get vetted before playdates. It becomes routine. Lena turned to face him. Is that how you grew up? With all this security? No, I grew up with nothing. Security came later after I'd already learned how dangerous the world could be. His expression darkened. I don't want that for Grace. I want her to feel safe without understanding why she needs to be. That's a lot of lying. It's a lot of protecting. There's a difference. Lena walked to the window, pressed her hand against the glass. She could feel Lucien behind her, close but not touching, giving her space to think. Grace deserved safety, deserved opportunities, deserved a life where she didn't have to worry about money or danger or any of the things that had plagued Lena's entire existence. But accepting this, moving into Lucien's estate, becoming part of his world, meant accepting him. His control, his methods, his darkness. It meant trusting a man who'd admitted he wasn't good, who operated outside the law, who solved problems with violence when necessary. It meant giving up the last illusion of independence. If I do this, Lena said slowly, if I move in here with Grace, so what exactly does that make us? To you? Mine, Lucien said simply. It makes you mine. Under my protection, in my care, part of my life. Completely. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. I can't promise you love. We barely know each other. I can't promise you normalcy. My life doesn't allow for that. But I can promise you safety, loyalty, complete commitment to your well-being and Grace's future. He moved closer, his voice dropping. I want you here, Lena. I want to know you're safe at night. I want to watch Grace grow up. I want to build something with you that neither of us thought we could have. A family? If that's what you want to call it. Yes? Lena's throat tightened. A family. She'd thought she was building that with Caleb, but that had been a fantasy. This, whatever Lucien was offering, was real. Complicated and dangerous and probably insane, but real. I need to go back to the apartment, she said. I need to be with Grace. I need to think. Of course. No disappointment in his voice, just acceptance. Vincent will take you whenever you're ready. And you're really okay with me taking time? I told you, I'm patient. Lucien touched her face again, that gesture that was becoming familiar. Take as long as you need. The offer stands. The drive back to her apartment felt surreal. Lena watched the city pass by. Transition from wealth to middle class to the neighborhood where she'd been living for less than 2 weeks. The apartment that had felt like a sanctuary suddenly seemed exposed, vulnerable. She saw everything differently now. The security gate that could be bypassed, the parking lot with too many blind spots, the windows that faced the street where anyone could watch. Margaret reported that Grace had been perfect, as always. Lena paid her and settled into the rocking chair with her daughter, trying to sort through the tangled mess of her thoughts. She had options now. Real options, not just survival strategies. She could stay here, in this apartment that Lucien provided, and maintain some distance. She could move into his estate and accept complete protection. She could even walk away entirely, though that option felt more theoretical with every passing day. What did she want? Not what she needed. She'd been operating on need for so long that want felt foreign. But if she could choose, if she could build the life she actually wanted instead of just surviving the one she had, what would it look like? Safe. She wanted to feel safe. Wanted Grace to grow up without fear, stable. She wanted money not to be a constant source of panic. Wanted to make decisions based on what was right instead of what she could afford. Seen. She wanted someone to look at her the way Lucien did. Like she mattered, like she was worth the effort, like she was more than just another person struggling to get by. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lucien. Whatever you decide, it's the right decision. Trust yourself. Lena stared at the message. Trust herself. When had she last done that? When had she last made a choice based on what she wanted instead of what she could survive? She looked at Grace, sleeping peacefully in her arms. Her daughter deserved better than survival mode. Deserved a mother who could actually thrive instead of just endure. And maybe, just maybe, Lena deserved that too. She typed back, "I want to see the rooms again, tomorrow, with Grace this time." His response came immediately. "I'll send the car at 10. And Lena, thank you. For what? For trusting me enough to keep trying." Lena set the phone down and held Grace closer, feeling the weight of the decision settling around her. She wasn't saying yes yet, but she wasn't saying no either. She was choosing to keep exploring this strange new world Lucienne offered, to see if safety and stability were really possible, or if they were just another fantasy that would dissolve when tested. Outside, the black SUV maintained its position across the street. Protection she could see now, couldn't unsee. Evidence that whether she accepted Lucien's offer or not, she was already part of his world, already under his watch, already, in some fundamental way, his. The question wasn't whether to accept that reality. The question was whether to make it official, to walk fully into the life he was building for her, or to keep standing at the threshold, half in and half out, pretending she still had the option to turn back. Grace stirred in her arms, made a small sound of contentment. So trusting. So completely dependent on Lena to make the right choices. "I'm trying," Lena whispered to her daughter. "I'm really trying to figure this out." And somewhere across the city, in an estate with marble floors and endless security, Lucienne Moretti waited for her answer with a patience that should have been reassuring but somehow felt like inevitability. Like he already knew what she would choose. Like he'd known from the moment he'd approached her in that hospital corridor. Like this had always been where they were heading, and everything else was just the journey to get there. Lena moved into the estate on a Tuesday morning, 3 days after her second visit to see the rooms with Grace. The decision hadn't come easily. She'd spent those 3 days pacing her apartment, making lists of pros and cons that all seemed inadequate, calling the number Lucien gave her just to hear his voice, and then hanging up without saying anything important. But every time she looked at Grace, every time she checked the window and saw the security detail that never left, she knew the choice had already been made. She couldn't go back to being alone. Couldn't unlearn what she now knew about the danger that had been circling them. And more than that, she didn't want to. Something had shifted during that visit when she'd carried Grace through those elegant rooms, watched Lucienne hold her daughter with surprising gentleness, seen the way his entire staff moved to accommodate them without question. It felt like belonging, like home, in a way nowhere else ever had. Vincent and 2 other men handled the move, which took less than an hour because Lena still barely owned anything. Her few belongings looked ridiculous spread across the master suite. Cheap clothes in an expensive closet, drugstore toiletries in a bathroom with marble counters. Lucien had offered to take her shopping, but Lena had refused. She needed something that was still hers, still marked by her choices, even if they were poor ones. "Settling in okay?" Elena appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand, looking immaculate as always. "Define okay," Lena said, folding a worn t-shirt that didn't belong anywhere near this furniture. Not panicking, not running, not questioning every decision. Elena's expression softened slightly. "For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. Lucien's different around you. Better." "Better how?" "Less cold. More human." Elena glanced at Grace, sleeping in a portable bassinet. "He's been alone for a long time. Isolated himself after Sophia died. Seeing him open up to someone again, it's good. We were starting to worry he'd forgotten how." Lena sat on the edge of the bed, exhaustion hitting her suddenly. "Everyone keeps mentioning Sophia, but no one tells me who she actually was." "That's Lucien's story to tell, not mine." Elena moved further into the room. "But I will tell you this. You remind him of her. The strength, the stubbornness, the refusal to break even when you should. That's probably why he's so protective of you. Second chances don't come around often." "I'm not a second chance. I'm a person. You're both. And honestly, that's better than being just one or the other." Elena checked her tablet. "Dinner's at 7. Lucien wants you there, but don't feel obligated. If you need space, I can have something sent up." "Who else will be there?" "Just the inner circle. Marcus, Vincent, me. Maybe Thomas, if he's back from Miami. We eat together most nights. Helps maintain cohesion." Sounds very corporate. "We are a corporation, just one that occasionally handles problems with bullets instead of lawsuits." Elena said it so matter-of-factly that Lena almost laughed. 7 o'clock, main dining room. Dress casual. We're family here, not clients. She left before Lena could respond to that loaded word. Family. These people who worked for Lucian, who protected his interests, who now apparently included her in that designation. It should have felt presumptuous. Instead, it felt like relief. Like she'd been wandering alone for so long that even a dysfunctional family was better than none at all. Grace woke up fussing, and Lena lost herself in the familiar routine of feeding and changing and soothing. The nursery was perfect, better than perfect, with supplies she hadn't known existed and furniture that probably cost more than a used car. But Grace didn't care about expensive things. She just wanted warmth and food and her mother's voice, same as always. "We're going to be okay here," Lena whispered, rocking slowly. I hope. I'm making this up as I go, baby girl, but we're going to try." A knock at the door. Lena called for them to enter, expecting Elena or Margaret. Instead, Lucien stepped inside, and the room suddenly felt smaller. "Sorry," he said. "I should have texted first. I just wanted to make sure you had everything you needed." "We're fine." Grace is being Grace. Lena gestured to the baby, who'd calmed down and was now staring at Lucien with that unfocused infant attention. She doesn't care about thread count or security systems. Smart girl. Lucien moved closer, and Lena noticed he'd changed from the suit he'd been wearing earlier. Now he was in dark jeans and a casual shirt, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. "Mind if I sit?" "It's your house. It's your room." He waited until she nodded, then settled into the chair by the window. "I know this is overwhelming, moving in, meeting everyone, adjusting to how we operate. If you need time, everyone keeps offering me time, but time doesn't change anything. I'm either in or I'm out, and I chose in." Lena met his eyes. "So stop treating me like I'm going to break." Something shifted in his expression. Approval, maybe, or respect. "Fair enough. Then let me be direct. There are some things you need to know about living here. Rules, expectations, boundaries." "Okay. First, you go nowhere without security. That's not negotiable. Vincent or one of his team drives you anywhere you need to go. You don't walk to the corner store, you don't take public transportation, you don't venture out alone. Ever." "That sounds like prison." "It's protection. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes. Because you can still go places, do things, have a life. You just do it with people watching your back." Lucian leaned forward. "The Volkovs don't know about you yet, but that could change. Until I've handled the Caleb situation completely, you're vulnerable. I need you to accept that." Lena's grip tightened on Grace. "How long until it's handled?" "Days, maybe a week. And then?" "And then you're safer, still protected. You'll always have security in my world, but the immediate threat is gone." "What are you going to do to him?" "We agreed you didn't want details." "I changed my mind. If I'm living in your house, if Grace is sleeping 20 feet from where you sleep, I need to know what kind of man is protecting us." Lucien was quiet for a long moment, studying her. Then he spoke, his voice carefully neutral. "Caleb is going to disappear. Not dead. Death creates complications, investigations, questions, but gone. New identity, new location, far away from here. He'll be given enough money to start over somewhere, with very clear instructions about what happens if he ever comes back or tries to contact anyone from his old life." "That's it? You're just going to relocate him?" "With the understanding that the Volkovs will be told he's dead. We'll stage it. A body that can't be easily identified, evidence of a gambling debt gone wrong. They'll accept the loss and move on. Caleb lives, but as far as anyone here knows, he doesn't exist anymore. And if he doesn't cooperate, then the arrangement becomes less generous." Lucien's expression hardened. "But I don't think it'll come to that. Caleb's scared. He knows he's out of options. When I offer him a way out, even one that requires leaving everything behind, he'll take it." "You sound very sure." "I've done this before." The casual way he said it made Lena's stomach turn. "How many times?" "Does it matter? Maybe 6. 7 if you count a situation in Boston that didn't go according to plan." Lucien stood, moved to the window. "I'm not going to pretend I'm something I'm not, Lena. I handle problems. Sometimes that means negotiation and money. Sometimes it means relocation and threats. And yes, sometimes it means violence. But I have lines I don't cross. And killing someone who's just an idiot with bad judgment is one of them. What about people who aren't idiots? People who actually threaten you? That's different. How? Because they know the rules. They operate in my world, they understand the consequences. Caleb's just a civilian who got in over his head. That doesn't make him worth killing. But someone who threatens me would be. Lucien turned from the window, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. Anyone who threatens you or Grace would be eliminated without hesitation. That's not a line for me, that's a certainty. You're under my protection now. That means something. The possessiveness should have scared her. Instead, Lena felt something else. Security, maybe? Or the strange comfort that came from knowing someone would go to war for her if necessary. She'd never had that before. Never had someone who treated her safety as their highest priority. What's the second rule? She asked. What? You said first security everywhere. What's second? Lucien smiled slightly. Second, be honest with me. If something's wrong, if you're scared, if you need something, tell me. Don't hide it. Don't try to handle it alone. I can't protect you if I don't know what's happening. And third, give this a real chance. Don't hold back because you're scared or because you think you should. Let yourself settle in. Get to know everyone. Build something here. He moved closer to where she sat. I know this isn't conventional, but nothing about either of our lives has been conventional. Maybe that means we get to write our own rules. That sounds optimistic for someone who just admitted to relocating 7 people. 6. Boston doesn't count. Right, 6. Grace started fussing again, and Lena automatically started the rocking motion that usually calmed her. Lucien watched for a moment, then held out his hands. May I? Lena hesitated. She'd seen him hold Grace during the second visit, but that had been brief, carefully supervised. This felt different, more intimate, more real. But she nodded and carefully transferred her daughter into his arms. Lucien held Grace with surprising confidence, supporting her head properly, keeping her secure against his chest. The baby settled immediately, making that small, contented sound she only made when she felt safe. You're good at that, Lena said. I told you, nephew. I had practice. Lucien looked down at Grace with something soft in his expression. She's beautiful, Lena. You did well. I was mostly just terrified. Fear and love aren't mutually exclusive. Sometimes they're the same thing. He swayed gently, that universal parent motion. When Sophia died, I thought I'd never let myself care about anyone again. Caring makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability gets people killed. So I built walls, kept everyone at arm's length, convinced myself that power was enough. What changed? I saw you in that hospital, breaking down but still fighting, still trying to protect this tiny person even though you had nothing. And I thought, that's what strength actually looks like. Not walls and distance, just refusing to give up even when you should. He looked at Lena. You changed it. You reminded me that some things are worth the vulnerability. Lena's throat tightened. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone you barely know. I'm not putting pressure. I'm being honest. You asked for honesty. That's what this is. I don't know if I can be what you need me to be. You already are. You're here. You're trying. That's enough. Lucien carefully handed Grace back. Come to dinner tonight. Meet the family properly. Let yourself belong. And if I don't fit in, you will. But if you don't, we'll figure it out. He moved toward the door, paused. One more thing. What? Thank you for trusting me with this. With both of you. I know it wasn't easy. It was terrifying. But you did it anyway. That's the bravest thing I've seen in a long time. He left before she could respond, closing the door softly behind him. Lena sat there holding Grace, trying to process the conversation. Lucien kept peeling back layers, showing her pieces of himself that felt raw and real and completely at odds with the dangerous crime boss everyone else saw. She didn't know which version was true, or if maybe they both were. If someone could be ruthless and tender in equal measure, if violence and care could coexist in the same person. At 7 o'clock, Lena made her way downstairs with Grace in a wrap carrier. She'd changed into the nicest things she owned, jeans without holes and a sweater that didn't make her look completely exhausted, and tried to calm her racing heart. This was just dinner, just meeting people. Except it wasn't, because these people could end lives as easily as they passed salt, and she was walking into their inner circle like she belonged there. The dining room was smaller than she'd expected, intimate, with a table that sat maybe 10 people comfortably. Marcus and Vincent were already there, along with Elena and a man Lena didn't recognize. Lucien stood at the head of the table, and when he saw her, his entire expression shifted. "Lena, come sit." He pulled out the chair to his right. "Everyone, you remember Lena, and this is Grace." "She's tiny," the stranger said. He was younger than the others, maybe early 30s, with an easy smile. "I'm Thomas. I handle the Miami operations." "Which means he spends half his time on a boat pretending to work," Elena said, but there was affection in her voice. "Hey, negotiations happen better with good weather and mojitos." Thomas grinned at Lena. "Welcome to the chaos. Fair warning, we're all slightly dysfunctional, but we make up for it with loyalty." "And violence," Marcus added dryly. "That too." Dinner was served, actual courses, prepared by someone Lena hadn't even met yet, presented like this was a restaurant instead of a private home. The food was incredible, but Lena barely tasted it. She was too busy watching the dynamics around the table, the way Marcus and Elena bickered like siblings, how Thomas told outrageous stories that were probably only half true, the way Vincent observed everything with quiet attention, and Lucien, presiding over it all with the ease of someone who'd built this strange family from scratch. "So Lena," Thomas said between courses, "what's your story? How'd you end up in Lucian's orbit?" "Thomas," Elena warned. "What? I'm just asking." "It's fine," Lena said. She glanced at Lucien, who nodded slightly. "My ex abandoned me and my daughter at the hospital. No money, no place to go. Lucien offered to help. And you took it. Smart." Thomas leaned back in his chair. "Most people are too proud to accept help from someone like Lucien. They think there are strings attached." "There are strings attached. Yeah, but they're the good kind. Protection, security, actual loyalty. That's worth more than independence when you're vulnerable." "Spoken like someone who's never been vulnerable," Marcus said. "I've been plenty vulnerable. I just hide it better." Thomas winked at Lena. "Point is, you made the right call. We take care of our own here." "I'm not yours. You're Lucien's, which makes you ours. Same thing." He said it so casually, like ownership was just another form of affection. Maybe in this world, it was. The conversation flowed around her, business talk mixed with personal stories, threats discussed alongside vacation plans. It was surreal hearing Marcus mention eliminating a witness in the same tone he used to ask Elena about her mother's health, but no one else seemed bothered by it. This was normal for them, violence as routine as dinner. Grace started fussing halfway through the main course, and Lena excused herself to feed her. She expected to go upstairs, but Elena gestured to a sitting room just off the dining room. "Use that. It's private, and you won't miss anything important." The sitting room was quiet, comfortable. Lena settled into an armchair and got Grace situated, trying to ignore the fact that somewhere behind that wall, people were discussing criminal operations while eating roasted vegetables. Her life had become bizarre, completely, utterly bizarre. The door opened. Lucien stepped inside, closed it behind him. "You okay?" "I'm feeding my daughter while criminals discuss murder in the next room. So no, not really okay." "We weren't discussing murder. That was warehouse logistics." "Oh well, in that case," Lena adjusted Grace's position. "This is normal for you? Dinner with your team, casual violence talk, everything just another day?" "It's been normal for 10 years since I took over the business." Lucien sat across from her. "But I understand it's not normal for you. If it's too much, it's not too much. It's just different." Lena looked at him. "Tell me about Sophia. Everyone keeps mentioning her, but no one explains." Lucien's expression closed slightly. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Who she was. How she died. Why you blame yourself." "I don't blame myself." "Liar." He smiled despite himself. "You're getting better at reading me. Answer the question." Lucien was quiet for a long moment, and Lena thought he might refuse. Then he spoke, his voice lower, more careful. Sophia was my first real relationship. I was 23, she was 21. I was working my way up in the organization, not running it yet, but getting close. She worked at a cafe near my apartment. We met over bad coffee and worse pickup lines. You used a pickup line? I was 23 and thought I was charming. Don't judge. He leaned back, staring at nothing. She didn't know what I did. I told her I worked in import-export, which wasn't technically a lie. We dated for 8 months. I was falling for her, really falling, the kind that makes you stupid and reckless. I was planning to tell her the truth, to bring her into my world properly. But you didn't. I didn't get the chance. Her ex-boyfriend, a guy named Marco, owed money to people I worked with. Serious money. When he couldn't pay, they started looking for leverage. Someone saw us together, figured out Sophia mattered to me, and made the connection to Marco. Suddenly she was a double target, useful for getting to both of us. Lena's stomach twisted. What happened? They took her, used her to pressure both Marco and me. Marco was supposed to pay his debt, I was supposed to arrange it. But Marco panicked and ran, and the people holding Sophia, they didn't need her anymore. His voice had gone flat, emotionless. They killed her to send a message, left her in a place they knew I'd find her. Lucienne, I found her. That's what I remember most. Not our dates or her laugh or any of the good things. Just finding her body and realizing I'd brought that into her life. I'd made her a target just by caring about her. It wasn't your fault. It was entirely my fault. I knew the risks. I knew what my world did to innocent people. And I brought her in anyway because I was selfish and wanted something normal. So you decided to never want anything normal again? I decided to never make someone vulnerable like that again. I built power, eliminated threats, made sure no one could use anyone against me because there was no one to use. He looked at her. Until you. I'm not Sophia. No, you're stronger. You've already survived things that would have broken most people. And you know what my world is? You're choosing this with open eyes. He paused. But that doesn't mean I'm not terrified of failing you the same way I failed her. Lena shifted Grace to her shoulder, began burping her. You can't protect me from everything. That's not realistic. I can try. And when you fail, because you will, eventually. Everyone does. Then I adapt. I fix it. I do whatever it takes to keep you safe. The intensity in his voice was almost frightening. You don't understand what you mean yet, Lena, what you represent. But I do. You're my second chance. My opportunity to prove that caring about someone doesn't have to end in tragedy, and I'm not going to waste it. Grace burped, making that small, satisfied sound. Lena looked down at her daughter, then back at Lucienne. What if I hurt you? What if I'm the one who fails? Then I'll still protect you. That's not conditional. That's not healthy. Probably not, but it's honest. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Then Lucien stood, offered his hand. Come back to dinner. You shouldn't eat alone. Lena took his hand, let him pull her up. Grace was settling into that post-feeding drowsiness, and Lena carefully placed her in the carrier. When she looked up, Lucien was watching her with that same careful attention he always showed. What? She asked. Nothing, just, you're good at this. Being a mother. I don't think you give yourself enough credit. I'm making it up as I go. That's what all good parents do. They just don't admit it. He touched her face, brief and gentle. Thank you for being here, for giving this a chance. Stop thanking me. It makes me nervous. Why? Because people don't usually thank someone unless they're afraid of losing them. Maybe I am afraid of losing you. Is that so strange? It is when you barely know me. I know enough, and I want to know more. That's the point of all this. Time to build something real. They returned to the dining room, where dessert was being served and Thomas was in the middle of a story about a deal gone wrong in Miami. Everyone made space for Lena easily, naturally, like she'd always been part of this strange family. And for the first time since moving in, she felt herself relax slightly. These were dangerous people, but they were also loyal, protective, and willing to accept her because Lucien had brought her into the fold. After dinner, Marcus cornered her in the hallway. I need to go over security protocols with you. Standard procedures for when you leave the estate. Elena said I can't leave without Vincent or his team. That's part of it, but there's more. Escape routes, panic protocols, how to handle specific threat scenarios. He pulled out a tablet. I'll walk you through everything tomorrow. For now, just know that if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call this number immediately. He showed her a contact labeled simply emergency. That goes directly to me and Lucien. We'll have people to you in minutes, no questions asked. You really think something could happen? I think preparation prevents panic. Lucien wants you safe, which means I make sure you're safe. That's my job. And if I mess up, if I don't follow protocol and something goes wrong, then we adapt and fix it. But don't make a habit of it. Marcus's expression softened slightly. You're doing fine, by the way. Better than most people would in your situation. I don't feel like I'm doing fine. That's because you're smart enough to recognize how complicated this is. The people who think they're doing fine are usually the ones who end up dead. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be honest. He pocketed the tablet. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we'll start training properly. Training for what? Surviving in Lucien's world. It's more complicated than you think. He walked away before she could ask more questions, leaving Lena standing in the hallway, wondering what exactly she'd signed up for. Training, protocols, emergency numbers. This wasn't just protection, this was preparation for war. Upstairs, she found Lucien in the nursery, standing by Grace's crib. He'd changed the baby at some point. Lena could see the fresh diaper and new outfit, and was now just watching her sleep. You're good at that too, Lena said from the doorway. I Googled it earlier, wanted to make sure I remembered the right technique. You Googled how to change a diaper? I wanted to be useful. He looked embarrassed, which was oddly endearing. Is that strange? It's sweet. Weird, but sweet. Lena moved to stand beside him. Marcus says I need training, security protocols and threat scenarios. He's thorough, sometimes too thorough. But he's right. You should know what to do in case something happens. Do you really think the Volkovs could find us here? No, but I don't leave things to chance. Lucien turned to face her fully. I know this is a lot, the security, the protocols, all of it, but it's temporary. Once the Caleb situation is resolved, things calm down. And then what? We just live here? Play house in your estate while you run criminal operations? We build something real, something that's ours, not defined by the circumstances that brought us together. He touched her shoulder. I'm not asking you to love me, Lena. I'm asking you to give me time to earn that, to prove that this can work. What if it doesn't work? Then we figure out what does. But I think it will. I think we're both too stubborn to let it fail. Stubbornness isn't love. No, but it's a start. He smiled slightly. Get some sleep. You look exhausted. Gee, thanks. I meant it with affection. He kissed her forehead, brief, chaste, but it still made her breath catch. Good night, Lena. I'm glad you're here. He left before she could respond, and Lena stood alone in the nursery with her sleeping daughter, trying to figure out how her life had become this strange combination of danger and domesticity. 3 weeks ago, she'd been alone in a hospital with $47 and no future. Now she was living in an estate with security protocols and a man who looked at her like she was worth protecting. It was too much. But it was also, somehow, exactly what she needed. She checked Grace one more time, perfectly content, perfectly safe, and made her way to her own room. The bed was enormous. The sheets felt like silk. And somewhere in the house, people were monitoring security feeds to make sure nothing threatened them. Lena should have felt trapped, should have felt like she'd traded one form of dependency for another. Instead, she felt something she hadn't felt in longer than she could remember. She felt like maybe, possibly, things were going to be okay. She fell asleep quickly, deeply, and didn't wake until Grace's cries pulled her from dreams she couldn't quite remember. And when she stumbled into the nursery at 3 in the morning, she found Lucien already there, holding Grace and murmuring something in Italian that sounded like a lullaby. I heard her crying, he said. Didn't want you to have to get up. It's my job to get up. It can be mine too, if you'll let it. Lena stood in the doorway, watching this dangerous man hold her daughter with infinite gentleness, and felt something shift inside her chest. Not love. Not yet. It was too soon for that. But something close. Something that felt like the beginning of trust. The foundation of something that might eventually become more. Okay, she whispered. Okay. And in that moment, in a nursery lit only by a moon-shaped nightlight, with her daughter safe in the arms of a man who'd promised to protect them both, Lena finally let herself believe that maybe she'd made the right choice after all. 6 days after Lena moved into the estate, Lucian told her it was done. She was in the garden with Grace, enjoying the rare December sunshine while Margaret hovered nearby with a blanket in case the temperature dropped. Grace was awake and alert, staring at the sky with that intense focus babies had when discovering the world. Lena had been pointing out clouds when she heard footsteps on the stone path. Lucien approached slowly, hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. Marcus walked behind him, which immediately set off alarm bells in Lena's mind. Marcus never left his post unless something significant had happened. "We need to talk," Lucien said. Lena's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Let's go inside. Margaret can watch Grace." "I'm not leaving her. She's safe here. 20 feet from the house, 3 security personnel within visual range, Margaret right there. She's fine." His voice was gentle but firm. "Please, Lena. This conversation needs to happen in private." Margaret took Grace without being asked, settling onto a nearby bench with the baby cradled against her. Lena followed Lucien and Marcus back into the house, through hallways that had become familiar, into Lucien's office. The door closed with a soft click that sounded final. "Sit," Lucien said, gesturing to the leather couch. "I'd rather stand." "Lena, just tell me. Whatever it is, just say it." Lucien exchanged a glance with Marcus, then turned back to her. "Caleb's gone. As of 4 hours ago, he no longer exists in this city, in this state, or anywhere the Volkovs can find him." The words took a moment to register. "Gone? You mean—" "I mean exactly what I said. He's alive, relocated, with a new identity and enough money to start over somewhere far from here. He'll never contact you, never come near Grace, never be a problem again. That's guaranteed." Lena sat down after all, her legs suddenly unsteady. What did you do?" "We gave him a choice," Marcus said. "Disappear willingly with our help or disappear the hard way. He chose wisely." "Where is he?" "You don't need to know that," Lucien said. "And honestly, you don't want to. The less you know about where he is, the better. If anyone ever asks, and they won't, you can truthfully say you have no idea." "Did you hurt him?" "No. Though I wanted to." Lucien's voice hardened. "For what he did to you, for abandoning Grace, for putting you both in danger, I wanted to hurt him very much. But that wasn't the agreement. He cooperated, so we kept our word. He's alive and unharmed." "What about the Volkovs?" "They think he's dead. We staged a scene, made it look like he tried to run and got caught by someone else. Someone who wanted their money more than we did. There's a body, a positive ID, all the evidence they need to close the case. They'll write off the debt as a loss and move on." Lena's mind spun. "A body? Whose body?" "Someone from the morgue who matched Caleb's general description. We altered dental records, placed him at the right scene. It's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be. The Volkovs aren't investigators, they're businessmen. As long as it looks resolved, they'll accept it." "That's insane." "That's thorough," Marcus corrected. "This way, there are no loose ends. No one's looking for Caleb because everyone thinks he's dead. You and Grace are completely safe." Lena pressed her hands to her face, trying to process. Caleb was gone. Really gone. The man who'd walked away from her in that hospital, who'd put them all in danger with his stupidity and greed, had been erased from existence. She should feel something, relief, maybe, or guilt, or some complicated mixture of both. Instead, she mostly felt tired. "What did he say?" she asked quietly. "When you told him what was happening, did he ask about Grace?" Lucien's expression darkened. "He asked if you'd sign away his parental rights. Said he didn't want complications down the line." "Of course he did," Lena laughed, bitter and sharp. "Of course his first concern was legal liability. I had papers drawn up. You just need to sign them. Once you do, Caleb has no legal connection to Grace whatsoever. She's entirely yours." "And then what? He just gets to start over somewhere else? Clean slate, no consequences?" "His consequence is losing everything. His home, his identity, his entire life. He'll spend the rest of his existence looking over his shoulder, wondering if we'll change our minds. That's not nothing. Lucien moved to sit beside her on the couch, close but not touching. But if you want more, if you need him to suffer more for what he did, I can arrange that. No. The word came out automatically. No, I don't want that. I just want him gone. I want to never think about him again. Then that's what you'll have, I promise. Marcus cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Your ex's mother, she's been making noise, calling the hospital, trying to find out where you went. So far she's hit dead ends, but she's persistent. Lena's blood ran cold. What kind of noise? Accusations, mostly. Claiming you're hiding her grandchild, that you're an unfit mother, threatening legal action. Nothing credible. She has no standing, but annoying nonetheless. Marcus pulled up something on his tablet. We can handle it several ways. Legal threats usually shut people like her down. Or we can be more direct. Don't hurt her, Lena said immediately. She's a nightmare, but she's not dangerous, just bitter and angry. We won't hurt her, but we will make it very clear that pursuing this path is unwise. Lucien's voice was cold. She'll get one warning. If she doesn't take it, the consequences escalate. What kind of consequences? The kind that convince people to leave well enough alone. Trust me, Lena, she'll stop. Lena wanted to argue, to insist there had to be another way, but she was too exhausted to fight. And honestly, the thought of Caleb's mother finally leaving her alone, never calling again, never sending those horrible texts, was too appealing to refuse. Okay, she said, do what you need to do. Just keep her away from Grace. Done. Marcus made a note on his tablet. I'll handle it personally. By the end of the week, she'll forget you exist. He left, closing the door behind him, and suddenly Lena was alone with Lucien in the quiet office. She could hear the clock on the wall ticking, could see dust motes floating in the afternoon light, could feel the weight of everything that had just happened settling around her like a blanket. It's over, Lucien said softly. The threat's gone. You're safe now. Really safe. Why doesn't it feel over? Because trauma doesn't end just because the danger does. You've been in survival mode for so long that your body doesn't know how to relax yet. He touched her hand carefully. But it will. Give it time. Everyone keeps telling me to give things time, as if time fixes anything. It doesn't fix things, but it gives you space to process them, to figure out what you want instead of just reacting to what you need. Lucien's thumb traced circles on her palm. What do you want, Lena, now that you're not just surviving anymore? What do you actually want? The question caught her off guard. What did she want? She'd been so focused on keeping Grace safe, on navigating this new world, that she hadn't stopped to think about her own desires beyond basic security. I want Grace to have a normal childhood, she said finally. I want her to grow up feeling loved and protected, but not scared. I want her to believe the world is good, even if it's not always. That's what you want for Grace. What about you? I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. Think now. Lena looked at him. This man who'd appeared in her life like something out of a story, who'd offered protection and safety and something she was afraid to name. He was watching her with that careful intensity he always had, like her answer mattered more than anything else in the world. I want to feel like I'm enough, she admitted. Not just as a mother, but as a person. I want to stop apologizing for existing, and I want... She hesitated, then pushed forward. I want to know if this is real. If what's happening between us is something actual or just gratitude and proximity. It's real, Lucien said without hesitation. At least for me. I can't speak for what you're feeling, but what I feel when I look at you. That's not gratitude. That's not convenience. That's... He stopped, seemed to search for the right word. That's something I haven't felt since Sophia, something I didn't think I'd feel again. Don't compare me to her. I'm not. You're nothing like Sophia. You're stronger, harder, more willing to fight. But what you make me feel? That's the same. That certainty that I've found something worth protecting, worth building around, worth risking vulnerability for. You barely know me. I know you're stubborn and scared and trying so hard to be brave that you don't realize you already are. I know you'd do anything for Grace, that you put her needs above your own to the point of self-destruction. I know you're kind even when you don't have to be, that you second-guess yourself constantly, and that you smile like you're surprised when something good happens because good things have been so rare in your life. He moved closer. I know enough, and I want to know more. All of it. Everything you'll let me see. Lena's breath caught. This is moving really fast. We can slow down. We can take all the time you need. That's not what I mean. I mean, how do I know this isn't just trauma bonding, Stockholm syndrome or something? You saved me when I was desperate. Maybe what I'm feeling isn't real either. Maybe it's just gratitude and relief dressed up as something more. Maybe, Lucien acknowledged, but maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe real and functional are the same thing, and we don't need to overthink which emotions are legitimate versus which ones come from circumstance. That's a very convenient philosophy for someone who orchestrated those circumstances. It's honest. I won't apologize for how we met, Lena. I won't pretend I didn't see an opportunity and take it. But that doesn't make what's happening now any less real. Circumstances brought us together. What we choose to do with that is up to us. Lena stood, needing space to think. She walked to the window, looked out at the gardens where Margaret was still sitting with Grace. Her daughter looked so small from up here, so vulnerable, but also safe. Completely, absolutely safe in ways Lena had never been able to provide on her own. I need you to understand something, she said, not turning around. I'm not going to fall at your feet with gratitude. I'm not going to be some grateful rescued princess who thinks you're perfect. I see what you are, Lucien. I see the violence and the control and the way you manipulate situations to get what you want. I see all of it. Good. And I'm still here anyway. Not because I don't have a choice, but because I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Choosing this life. Even knowing what it costs. But I need you to understand that I'm choosing it with my eyes open. I wouldn't want it any other way. She turned to face him. What happens now? Caleb's gone. The threat's handled. What do we do with all this time we suddenly have? Lucien stood, crossed the room to stand in front of her. We build something. Something real and permanent. We figure out what this is between us. We give Grace the life she deserves, and we stop letting fear dictate our choices. And if it doesn't work, then we'll have tried. That's more than most people can say. He reached up, cupped her face gently. I'm not asking you to love me today, Lena. I'm asking you to let me earn that love. Let me show you what I can be when I'm not just protecting you from immediate danger. Let me prove that this can be more than survival. What if I can't love you? What if I'm too broken from everything that happened? Then I'll love you enough for both of us until you figure out how to love yourself again, however long that takes. The words hit her like a physical thing. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. No one had ever offered unconditional patience, unconditional commitment without asking for anything immediate in return. That's not fair, she whispered. You can't just say things like that. Why not? It's true. Because it makes me want to trust you, and trusting you is terrifying. I know. Trust me anyway. Lena looked up at him, at this complicated, dangerous, surprisingly gentle man who'd crashed into her life and rearranged everything. She thought about the apartment he'd given her, the birth certificate he'd provided, the way he held Grace like she was made of glass. She thought about dinners with his strange chosen family, about security protocols and emergency numbers, and all the invisible ways he'd wrapped protection around her. She thought about how he could have just walked away that night in the hospital, could have let her figure it out on her own, let the danger find her, let Grace become another casualty of circumstances beyond her control. But he hadn't. He'd stepped in, taken control, made her his problem to solve. And now here they were, standing in his office with everything handled and nothing left to do but figure out what they actually were to each other. Ask me, she said suddenly. Ask you what? Whatever you've been wanting to ask me. I can see it in your face. There's something you want to say, but you're holding back. So ask me. Lucien's expression shifted. Vulnerability underneath the control. Hope underneath the certainty. Move into my room. Not the guest suite in the southeast wing. My actual room. Share my space, share my life. Let this be real instead of provisional. Lena's heart hammered. That's a big step. It is. And if you're not ready, I understand. But I want you there. I want to fall asleep next to you and wake up with you. I want Grace's nursery to be connected to our room, not a guest room. I want us to be an actual family instead of just people living in the same house. We barely know each other. We know enough, and we'll learn the rest together." He pulled her closer, careful and deliberate. "Say yes, Lena. Take the leap. Let yourself have something good instead of just something safe." She should say no. Should insist on more time, more distance, more certainty before making this kind of commitment. But standing here in his arms, looking up at his face and seeing nothing but honesty and hope and that fierce protective instinct that had saved her, she couldn't find the words for refusal. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. But I'm keeping some of my own space. I'm not giving up everything. I wouldn't ask you to. And if it doesn't work, if we try this and it falls apart, you don't get to hold it over me. You don't get to use it as leverage or guilt." "Agreed. And Grace comes first, always. If I ever think this arrangement is hurting her, I'm out." "I'd expect nothing less," Lucien smiled. "Any other conditions?" "Probably. I'll think of them as we go." "Fair enough." He leaned down, pressed his forehead to hers. "Thank you for trusting me, for taking this chance. Don't make me regret it." "I won't. That's a promise." They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other, the office quiet around them. Then Grace's cry echoed from outside, not distressed, just awake and demanding attention, and Lena pulled away with a small laugh. "Duty calls," she said. "Let me come with you." They walked back out to the garden together, and Margaret handed Grace over with a knowing smile. "She's hungry, and possibly needs a change. Hard to tell with babies." "Thanks, Margaret." Lena settled Grace in her arms, automatically starting the swaying motion that usually calmed her. "I've got her." "We've got her," Lucien corrected, his hand settling on Lena's back. Margaret's smile widened. "Yes, you do. I'll leave you to it." She walked away, leaving Lena and Lucien alone with Grace in the garden. The baby was fussing now, that building up to a real cry sound that all parents learn to dread. Lena started toward the house, but Lucien stopped her. "Wait, I want to ask you something else." "Now?" She's about to lose it. "It'll only take a minute." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. Lena's heart stopped. "Lucien, it's not what you think." "Well, it is, but not the way you think." He opened the box, revealing a simple silver ring. "This was my mother's, the only thing I have left from her. I want you to wear it." "That's a family heirloom. I can't." "You can. You're family now. You and Grace both." He took the ring out, held it up. "I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. That's a conversation for when we're both more sure. But I'm asking you to wear this. To let me claim you properly in a way that everyone in my world understands. To be mine, officially and publicly." Grace's cries were getting louder, but Lena couldn't look away from the ring. It was beautiful in its simplicity. Just a band with a small pattern etched around it, worn smooth with age. "What if people think we're engaged?" she asked. "Let them think whatever they want. We'll know the truth. This is about commitment, not status." He reached for her hand. "Please, Lena, let me do this." She should say no, should insist this was too much, too fast, too permanent. But Grace was crying, and Lucien was looking at her like she hung the moon, and the ring was warm in his palm, and she was so tired of saying no to things that might be good. "Okay," she said. "Put it on." Lucien slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for her, and something in his expression cracked open. Relief, maybe, or joy, or that fierce possessiveness that should have scared her but somehow didn't. "Thank you," he said, voice rough. "Stop thanking me. Just, let's go inside. Grace is about to hit the decibel that breaks glass." They went inside together, up to the nursery that was about to become their nursery, and Lena fed Grace while Lucien watched from the doorway. The ring felt strange on her finger, foreign but not unwelcome, a weight she'd have to get used to carrying. She twisted it absently while Grace ate, watched it catch the light. "When do we tell everyone?" she asked. "Tell them what?" "That I'm moving into your room, that we're, whatever this is, official." "At dinner tonight, unless you want to wait." "No, let's just do it. Rip the Band-Aid off." Dinner that night was louder than usual. Thomas had returned from Miami with stories about a deal gone sideways. Elena was annoyed about some accounting discrepancy, and Marcus was on his phone handling what sounded like a crisis in one of the warehouses. Normal chaos for this strange family. Lucian waited until dessert was served, then stood and tapped his glass. Everyone went quiet immediately, that automatic deference to their boss kicking in. "I have an announcement," he said, and Lena's stomach flipped. "Effective immediately, Lena is moving into the master suite with me. She and Grace are permanent residents here, full members of this household. I expect everyone to adjust accordingly." Silence. Then Thomas grinned. "About damn time. We were wondering how long you'd keep up the separate rooms pretense." "It wasn't a pretense," Lena said. "I needed time. And now you don't. That's good. We like having you here." He raised his glass. "To Lena and Lucian, may your weird crime family arrangement turn into something actually functional." "That's not a toast," Elena said, but she was smiling. "But I second it anyway. Welcome officially to the madness, Lena." They all drank, and Lena felt that strange warmth again. Acceptance from people who had no reason to accept her except that Lucian had decided she belonged. It should have felt conditional. Instead, it felt like coming home. After dinner, Lucian helped her move her meager belongings from the guest suite to his room. It didn't take long. She still barely owned anything. Her clothes looked ridiculous in his massive closet, her toiletries pathetic next to his expensive grooming products. But he made space for everything carefully, deliberately, like her presence mattered. "We'll go shopping," he said, hanging up her worn sweaters. "Get you things that actually fit this life." "I don't need expensive things." "I know, but I want to give them to you anyway." He turned to face her. "Let me take care of you, Lena. Not because you need it, but because I want to. Because it makes me happy." "That's a weird reason to buy someone clothes." "Welcome to my world. Everything's weird here." Grace was already asleep in the nursery, the one that was now connected to Lucien's room through a door that had been installed while they were at dinner. The crib was positioned so they could see her from the bed, could hear her immediately if she cried. Margaret had set everything up perfectly, like she'd known this was coming. Maybe she had. Maybe everyone had seen this trajectory except Lena herself. They got ready for bed in careful silence, navigating the intimate choreography of sharing space. Lucien gave her privacy when she changed, didn't comment when she emerged in ratty pajamas that had seen better days. Just pulled back the covers on what was apparently her side of the bed and waited. Lena climbed in, hyper-aware of how large the bed was and how close he was and how strange this all felt. She lay on her back, staring at the ceiling, trying to calm her racing heart. "I can sleep on the couch if this is too much," Lucien said quietly. "No, I agreed to this. I'm just adjusting. Take all the time you need." They lay in silence for a few minutes. Then Lena spoke into the darkness. "Tell me about your mother, the one who owned this ring." Lucien was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then his voice came, soft and careful. "She was kind. Too kind for the world she lived in. My father ran a small operation, nothing like what I have now, just enough to get by and piss off bigger players. She never wanted that life. She wanted normal things. A safe house, kids who went to regular schools, a husband who came home at predictable times. But she didn't get that. No, she got my father, who was ambitious and stupid in equal measure, who kept pushing boundaries until he pushed the wrong one. He died when I was 15. Bullet to the head in an alley 3 blocks from our apartment. I'm sorry. Don't be. He knew the risks. My mother, though, she didn't. She'd signed up for a difficult life, but not a dangerous one. His death broke something in her. She lasted 3 more years, then just gave up. Doctor said it was her heart, but I knew better. She died of grief and disappointment, and you were left alone. I was 18, old enough to inherit my father's debts and enemies, young enough to be stupid about how to handle them. His hand found hers in the darkness, fingers intertwining. I spent the next decade building power, so I'd never be that vulnerable again. Never dependent on anyone, never weak enough to be hurt. And it worked. I became exactly what I set out to be. Untouchable, feared, in control of everything. Until me. Until you. Until I saw that I'd built a prison instead of a fortress. And I'd been living in it so long I'd forgotten what freedom felt like. He squeezed her hand. You reminded me. You and Grace. You showed me that vulnerability isn't weakness and that protecting something precious is worth the risk. That's a lot of pressure to put on a broke single mother. You keep saying that, but you're not that person anymore, Lena. You haven't been since the moment you walked into my life. You're so much more than your circumstances. Easy to say when you change those circumstances. I just provided resources. You did the hard part. You chose to use them. You chose to trust me even when you were terrified. You chose to be brave when being afraid would have been easier. He rolled onto his side and she felt his gaze even in the darkness. Give yourself credit. You're remarkable. I'm really not. You really are. And someday you'll believe it. Grace made a small sound in the next room, not a cry, just a sleep noise, and Lena automatically tensed. But Lucian's hand on hers kept her still. She's fine, he murmured. Just dreaming. How do you know? Because I've been listening to her every night since you moved in, learning her patterns, figuring out which sounds mean she needs something and which ones are just baby noise. She's fine, I promise. The casual way he said it, like, of course he'd been monitoring Grace's sleep patterns, like, of course he'd learned to distinguish her cries, made Lena's throat tighten. This man had taken them in and made them his responsibility so completely that he knew her daughter's nighttime habits better than most fathers ever would. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For caring about her. About us. For being what Caleb should have been and wasn't. Don't thank me for basic decency. That's too low a bar. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I care about Grace because she's yours. And I care about you because you're extraordinary. That's not something that deserves thanks. It's just fact. You're very good with words. I'm honest. There's a difference. They fell silent again, but it was comfortable now. The strangeness of sharing a bed was fading, replaced by something that felt almost natural. Lena found herself relaxing into the mattress, her breathing synchronizing with his, the warmth of his presence somehow soothing instead of threatening. Lucienne, she said, just as she was drifting off. I think I could love you. Eventually, when I figure out how. His hand tightened on hers. That's all I'm asking for. The possibility, the chance. Okay, then you've got it. She fell asleep holding his hand, Grace breathing softly in the next room, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lena felt safe. Really, truly safe. The next few weeks passed in a blur of domesticity that would have seemed impossible a month ago. Lena learned the rhythms of the house, when staff came and went, which conversations to ignore and which to pay attention to, how to navigate the strange world Lucian inhabited. She attended dinners with his associates, learned to recognize threats in coded language, figured out which smiles were genuine and which were calculation. Grace thrived. She grew, gained weight, started making those first attempts at social smiles that every parent waited for. Margaret taught Lena things her mother had never been around to explain. Sleep schedules and feeding cues and how to trust her instincts instead of second-guessing everything. The nursery became a sanctuary, a space where Lena could just be a mother without worrying about money or danger or any of the complications that had defined her life before. And Lucian was everywhere and nowhere, giving her space but always available, protective but not suffocating. He worked from home more than he probably should have, stayed close without hovering, found excuses to check on her throughout the day. At night, they'd fall into bed exhausted, talk about everything and nothing until one of them drifted off, wake to Grace's cries, and handle them together with the ease of practice. It felt like building something real, something that might last. 6 weeks after she'd moved in, Lena woke to find Lucian already awake, watching her in the pre-dawn light. That's creepy, she mumbled. Can't help it. You're beautiful when you sleep. I probably have drool on my face. Still beautiful. He brushed hair from her forehead. I want to ask you something. If it's about marriage, it's too early for that conversation. It's not about marriage. Well, not exactly. He sat up and Lena followed, suddenly more awake. I want to adopt Grace. Legally. Give her my name, make it official that she's mine, ours, not just in practice, but in law. Lena's breath caught. That's huge. I know, and if you're not ready, I understand. But she's already my daughter in every way that matters. I want to make sure she's protected, that if anything happens to me, she's still taken care of. And I want her to have my name, to be a Moretti, to belong to this family completely. She's a Whitmore. She can be both, or she can just be a Moretti. That's up to you. But I want to make it official, Lena. I want to be her father, legally and permanently. Lena looked toward the nursery, where Grace was still sleeping. Her daughter, who'd never had a father, who Caleb had rejected before she was even born. Giving her Lucian's name, letting him adopt her. That was permanent. That was tying Grace to this world, this life, this man in ways she could never undo. But it was also giving her daughter something Lena had never had. A father who chose her, who wanted her, who would protect her with everything he had. Okay, she said. Yes. Adopt her. Make it official. Lucien's entire face transformed. You're sure? I'm sure. She deserves a father who actually wants to be one, and you're already that person. We might as well make it legal. He pulled her into a kiss, their first real one, not just a peck or a forehead touch, but actual lips, meeting with heat and intention. Lena kissed him back without thinking, without questioning, just letting herself feel the moment. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Lucien was grinning. I'll call the lawyers today. We'll make it happen fast. How fast? Weeks, maybe less. I have connections in the family court system. We can expedite it. Of course you do. You have connections everywhere. That's what happens when you're terrifying and wealthy. People want to help you. He kissed her again, quick and joyful. Thank you, Lena, for trusting me with this. With her. Don't make me regret it. Never. The adoption process was surprisingly smooth. Or maybe just smooth because Lucien made it smooth, calling in favors and greasing wheels and making sure everything happened at impossible speed. Within 3 weeks, they were standing in a judge's chambers with Grace sleeping peacefully in Lena's arms while legal documents were signed and filed. Grace Elizabeth Whitmore became Grace Elizabeth Moretti. Just like that, official and permanent. They celebrated with a small dinner at the estate. Just the inner circle, keeping it intimate. Thomas made a toast about unconventional families. Elena cried actual tears, which she immediately denied. And Marcus raised his glass to the newest Moretti, who will probably be running this operation by the time she's 18. After dinner, after Grace was asleep and the guests had left, Lucien found Lena in the garden. She was sitting on the stone bench where Margaret had held Grace that first day, looking up at the stars. You okay? He asked, settling beside her. Yeah, just thinking. About? About how different everything is. 2 months ago, I was alone in a hospital with $47 and no idea what came next. Now I'm here, Grace has your name, and I'm wearing your mother's ring. It's surreal. Good surreal or bad surreal? I don't know yet. Ask me in a year. She leaned against him. But probably good, I think. High praise. It's honest. They sat in comfortable silence, the December cold biting but not unbearable. Then Lucien spoke, his voice careful. I know we said marriage wasn't on the table yet, but I want you to know, when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm asking. I want to make this official in every way possible. I want Grace to have married parents. I want you to have my name. I want the whole thing. Whenever you're ready. Lena's heart hammered. That's a lot of pressure. It's not pressure. It's intention. You know where I stand. Take all the time you need to figure out where you stand. He turned to face her fully. But know this. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not Caleb. I'm not going to wake up one day and decide this is too hard. I chose you, Lena. I chose Grace. And I keep my promises. What if I can't give you what you want? What if I can never love you the way you want to be loved? Then I'll take whatever you can give and be grateful for it. He touched her face. You're already giving me more than I ever expected to have. A daughter, a partner, something worth protecting beyond just business and power. That's enough. Everything else is bonus. Lena looked at him, really looked, and saw the truth in his eyes. He meant it. Every word. This wasn't manipulation or strategy. This was just a man who decided she mattered and was willing to wait however long it took for her to believe it. Ask me again in 6 months, she said, about marriage. Ask me when I've had time to really understand what this life is, what it means to be part of your world, and I'll give you a real answer. 6 months. I can do that. He kissed her forehead. But fair warning, I'm going to make those 6 months as perfect as possible. I'm going to court you properly, show you exactly what kind of husband I'd be. That's not pressure, just information. You're impossible. I'm determined. There's a difference. They went back inside together, up to their room where Grace slept peacefully in her crib. Lena checked on her, now Grace Elizabeth Moretti, protected and claimed and surrounded by more love than most children would ever know. She touched the ring on her finger, solid and real, proof that this wasn't a dream. Thank you, she said to Lucian as they got into bed. For what? For seeing me in that hospital, for not walking away, for giving us this chance. You don't need to thank me for that. That was selfish on my part. I wanted you the moment I saw you. Everything else was just finding reasons to make it happen. Still, thank you. They fell asleep tangled together, and Lena dreamed of futures she'd never dared imagine before. Stable futures, safe futures, futures where Grace grew up happy and protected, and Lena finally learned how to be something other than just a survivor. 6 months passed faster than Lena expected. She learned to navigate Lucian's world with increasing confidence, found her place in the strange family he'd built, watched Grace grow into a healthy, happy baby who smiled at Lucian like he hung the moon. The nightmares faded, the constant anxiety eased. She stopped flinching when good things happened, stopped waiting for everything to fall apart. On a warm June evening, exactly 6 months after Lucian had first asked about marriage, he brought her back to the garden where they'd had so many important conversations. Grace was with Margaret, the house was quiet, and the stars were beginning to appear overhead. 6 months, he said. As promised, I'm asking again. Lena's heart raced, but not with fear, with anticipation. Ask then. Lucian dropped to one knee, actually dropped to one knee like something from a movie, and pulled out a box. Different from the one that had held his mother's ring, this one new and velvet and probably expensive. He opened it to reveal a diamond that caught the fading light. Lena Whitmore, will you marry me? Will you officially become my family, my partner, my wife? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that choosing me was the right decision? She looked at him, this complicated, dangerous, surprisingly gentle man who'd saved her and claimed her and given her a life she'd never dreamed possible. She thought about everything that had happened, every choice that had led her here, every moment of fear and hope and gradual trust. Yes, she said, and her voice didn't shake at all. Yes, I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto her finger next to his mother's band, and it fit perfectly. Then he stood and pulled her into a kiss that felt like a promise, like a beginning, like everything she'd been afraid to want finally becoming real. When they pulled apart, both smiling, Lena felt something inside her chest crack open. The last wall, the final defense, the piece of herself she'd been holding back in case everything fell apart. I love you, she said, and meant it completely. I don't know when it happened, but I do. I love you. Lucien's expression cracked into pure joy. Say it again. I love you. You're insane and controlling, and you solve way too many problems with violence, but I love you anyway. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm not done. I love how you hold Grace. I love that you learned her sleep patterns. I love that you gave her your name without hesitation. I love how you look at me like I'm something precious, even when I'm covered in spit up and haven't showered. I love that you're patient, even when I know you want to push faster. I love all of it, even the scary parts. The scary parts are pretty scary. I know, I'm choosing them anyway. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Lena let herself fall into it completely. No more holding back, no more hedging bets, just trust and hope and the strange, terrifying freedom that came with letting someone actually love you. They were married a month later in a small ceremony in the garden, with Grace as the only witness besides the inner circle and a judge who owed Lucian several favors. Lena wore a simple white dress that Elena had helped her pick out, carried Grace in her arms since the baby was too young to be a proper flower girl, and said her vows without crying until the very end. Lucian promised to protect her, to honor her, to be the father Grace deserved and the partner Lena needed. Lena promised to trust him, to build this life with him, to stop apologizing for taking up space in his world. They exchanged rings, matching bands to go with the ones they already wore. And when the judge pronounced them married, Lucian kissed her like they were the only two people in the world. "We did it," he whispered against her lips. "We did. We're actually married. Having regrets? Ask me in another 6 months." Fair enough. The reception was loud and joyful, with Thomas telling embarrassing stories about Lucien's past, and Elena organizing everything with military precision, and Marcus giving a surprisingly emotional toast about family being what you build, not what you're born with. Grace slept through most of it, perfectly content in Margaret's arms, oblivious to the fact that her entire life had just been officially cemented in place. Later, after everyone had left and Grace was asleep in the nursery, Lucien carried Lena over the threshold of their bedroom, their shared bedroom, no more guest suites or provisional arrangements, and set her down gently. "Hello, Mrs. Moretti," he said. "That's going to take some getting used to. You have the rest of your life to adjust." He started working on the buttons of her dress. "How do you feel?" "Terrified, happy, confused about how this is my actual life now." She let the dress fall away, stood in front of him in simple white lingerie, "But mostly happy." "Good. That's all I want. Your happiness. And my devotion, my loyalty, my complete commitment to this family." "Well, yes, those too." He grinned. "But happiness first." They made love for the first time as husband and wife, tentative at first, then with increasing confidence as they learned each other properly. It was messy and imperfect, and they had to stop twice to check on Grace, but it was real. It was theirs. And when they finally collapsed together afterward, both breathless and laughing, Lena felt something she'd never felt before. She felt like she was home. 1 year later, Lena stood in the same garden where she'd married Lucien, watching Grace take her first wobbly steps across the grass. Margaret hovered nearby, ready to catch her, but Grace was determined, stumbling forward with single-minded focus toward where Lucien knelt with his arms open. "Come on, Principessa," he called. "You can do it." Grace took 3 more steps and collapsed into his arms with a shriek of delight. Lucien lifted her up, spun her around, his expression pure joy. Lena watched them and felt her heart clench with overwhelming love. "You okay?" Elena asked from beside her. She'd stopped by for dinner and stayed for the afternoon, which was becoming a regular occurrence. "Yeah, just thinking about how different everything is. Different good or different bad? Different perfect." Lena looked at her friend, because Elena had become a friend, somewhere along the way. "A year and a half ago, I was broke and alone and terrified. Now look at this. Look at what we built." "You built it. Lucien just provided the foundation." "We built it together. That's what marriage is, right? Building something together." "If you're lucky," Elena smiled. "And you got very lucky. He's different with you, softer, more human. It's good to see." Lucien carried Grace over, the baby babbling and reaching for Lena. She took her daughter who had Lucien's name and his protection and more love than most children ever knew, and felt complete in a way she'd never thought possible. "What do you say?" Lucien asked, sliding an arm around her waist. "Think we did okay?" "I think we did better than okay." Lena leaned into him, Grace held between them. "I think we did something real." "Something permanent?" "Something permanent." He kissed her temple, and Lena closed her eyes, breathing in the moment. She thought about that night in the hospital, when she'd been at her lowest and a stranger had offered her an impossible choice. She thought about every decision since then, every moment of fear and trust and gradual surrender to something she hadn't known she needed. She thought about how far she'd come and how much further they still had to go. "I love you," she said to Lucien, to Grace, to this strange, perfect life they'd built together. "I love this. All of it." "Even the scary parts?" Lucien asked with a smile. "Especially the scary parts. They're what make it real." And standing there in the garden with her family surrounding her, protected and claimed and finally, truly home, Lena knew she'd made the right choice. Not because it was easy or safe or conventional, but because it was hers. Because she'd chosen it with open eyes and a willing heart, and that made all the difference. She was no longer the broke, desperate woman in the hospital corridor. She was Lena Moretti, wife, mother, survivor, fighter. And she was exactly where she was meant to be.